Good evening, everyone. Going to call the meeting to order. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this to us so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Please be seated. Okay, we have roll call. City Clerk.
Councilmember Mahan. Here. Caserta. O'Neill.
Present.
Davis.
Here.
Watanabe. Here. Kolstad.
Here.
And Mayor Gilmore.
Here. All right.
Ma'am,
Yes, go ahead.
May I please read the AB 23 announcement that members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting, and also the Statement of Behavioral Standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that the use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you. So first we have reports of action taken in closed session.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gilmore, members of the City Council. I'm Alexander Abbey, sitting in for Mr. Doyle tonight. I'm the Assistant City Attorney. There was no reportable action taken at the closed session.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us this evening. So we have a special order of business. The first special order of business, I'm going to ask the council if we could defer that to 7:30. We have our, the president of the PAL Board of Directors is supposed to be coming in from a game at 7:30, so hopefully he'll come then. If not, I see that we have other PAL Board Directors here, so we'll move on with that. So if I could ask the council by consensus, can we defer that until 7:30?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So next, we have another special order of business, which is a presentation of Alexandra Gallo, the field representative for California State Senator Bob Wachowski. So I'd like to invite Alexandra forward and to tell us a little bit about herself. And it's my understanding you're going to be the representative for Santa Clara. So welcome to Santa Clara. Is that on? Is that microphone on? There you go. Yay.
Okay. Hi, so good afternoon, Mayor Gilmore, City Council members, and members of the community. I want to thank Mayor Gilmore for inviting me to speak tonight, City Council members for allowing me to address you all today, and I want to thank Jose for putting me on the agenda tonight. My name is Alexandra Gallo, and I am the newest field representative for State Senator Bob Wachowski. I graduated from Fresno State in May of 2017, and recently worked for Congressman Jim Costa, and now I am with Team Wachowski. So really excited to be here, and I cover the city of Santa Clara. Senator Wachowski represents the Senate District 10. The district stretches from southern Alameda County to parts of Santa Clara County and covers the entire city of Santa Clara. And our office is located in Fremont. Senator Wachowski is no stranger to Santa Clara County. He is a graduate of Santa Clara University's law school. When issues came up with Agnews, he worked with local officials to ensure that Santa Clara County could purchase the former Agnews Developmental Center from the state. With the ever-growing population in Santa Clara County, Senator Wachowski saw this land acquisition as a major priority. When the Northside Library was stalled due to state dissolution of redevelopment agencies, Senator Wachowski worked with community members, such as Councilmember Kathy Watanabe, to ensure that Santa Clarans could enjoy this invaluable educational resource in our community. Senator Wykowski is also a major proponent for increasing affordable housing. He introduced a Senate bill in order to authorize AgriHood project to merge housing with open space and innovative agriculture. And currently, Senator Wykowski has a Senate bill that would affect Santa Clarans as well as businesses directly. If passed, Senate Bill 881, also known as the South San Francisco Bay Shoreline Project, would help build up resiliency along the South San Francisco Bay. This would increase flood protection for the Silicon Valley, where a coastal flood event could cause billions in damages, impacting more than 5,000 structures. Although Senate District 10 includes 2 counties and 1 million people, please know that you have a reliable representative in Santa Clara at the state capitol, for Santa Clara at the state capitol. Again, my name is Alexandra Gallo, and please feel free to get my business card, community members as well, at the end of the meeting, and contact our office if you have any legislative or constituency questions. And as a resource to you all, I host office hours from 3 o'clock to 5 p.m. every second Wednesday of the month in the Central Park Library. Thank you all.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and Senator Wachowski is a huge friend of Santa Clara, and he's, in fact, on our agenda tonight, we're talking about the AgriHood project that he helped us, and we're so forever grateful for what he did for Santa Clara on the Northside Library, and among other things. But what I really like about Senator Wachowski is when we call him, he actually answers the phone, talks to us, and he hasn't forgotten Santa Clara. So thank you so much for coming this evening. On behalf of the city, we want to give you an official city pin and maybe come down and take a picture with you.
Of course.
We expect you to wear this every time you walk into the city.
Absolutely.
We want to see your city pin. Okay, that's the condition, all right? So
Absolutely.
anyways, welcome to Santa Clara, and if we could meet you down here.
Oh, right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
I'm here in the middle.
Another one, just in case. All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item we have is our consent calendar, and all items are, oh, I'm sorry. Did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something? Oh, I'm sorry. I see people wanted to speak. Councilmember Mahan?
Yes, thank you. And I actually wanted to do this under the call to order because I wanted to ask council's indulgence in bringing forward under public hearing item 6, to bring it forward probably just right after the consent calendar, because I understand there are some time constraints for the applicant who is here.
Okay, I had it, okay, that's fine. I had it under the first item of general business. We were going to move it up, so that's fine. So you want it right after the consent calendar, before consent items pulled for discussion, or before public presentations? Yes, as soon as. Okay, all right, thank you. Do we need a vote on that? No, okay, we're good. Thank you, Councilmember Mahan. Vice Mayor Watanabe, did you want to say something? Oh, yes, okay. All items approved with one motion on the consent calendar unless there's items pulled for discussion.
I have something to pull.
I don't see any speakers.
Oh,
do you want
sorry.
to press your buttons? Thank you. Councilmember Davis?
2 and 18.
Could you please repeat that again?
2 and 18-141.
218,
2N.
2N.
oh, 2N. N is in Nancy? Yes. Okay. Any others? City Clerk, you
Yes,
have? Okay.
Mayor, there is a request from Suds Jane to pull 2P.
Okay. Councilmember Colstead?
2A18, I need to abstain on that.
Do you want to pull that, or do you want to just abstain? 2A18-406. City Clerk, do you have that abstention? Okay. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. 2M, please.
M is
M
in
like Mary.
Mary.
Where's Mary Grizzle?
And then Councilmember Caserta. Okay, motion and
City Clerk, could you
Councilman-
note my abstention on the minutes also? I was not here that evening also. Thank you.
okay, so I have 2N, M, and P pulled for discussion. And there's a motion for the balance of the consent calendar. Oh, any member of the public? Okay. Please vote on the motion. And that passes unanimously. So next we'll go to public presentations, and then we'll move on to our general business. Do we have any speakers here? Yeah, but okay, there. You know what, before we go to public presentations, I see that the gentleman I was waiting for just arrived. Not gonna let him take a breath.
No sitting.
We're gonna move backwards to our special order of business, our very first special order of business, which is recognition of outgoing Santa Clara Police Athletic League PAL Director Robert Martinez. So I want to say a little bit about Officer Martinez, Director, and then I'm going to ask the Chief to come forward, say a few words, and then the President of the PAL Board to come forward as well. So for tonight's special order of business, we'd like to recognize the outgoing PAL Director, Officer Robert Martinez. And he loves the limelight. That's why he's sitting in the back row there. I don't know if anyone forced you to come, but we probably had to, right? So Officer Martinez has served as a PAL Director for the past 3 years. And as the PAL Director, Officer Martinez organized low-cost sports programs and sporting events for Santa Clara's youth, facilitated special fundraiser events, and collected donations for school families in need. I'd like to invite Chief Sellers up to the podium, who will talk about Officer Martinez's achievements and his work as the PAL Director. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and residents. I just truly want to thank you for taking the time and recognizing our outgoing PAL Director, Robert Martinez. And since I am the Chief, I'm going to actually have him come up here.
Very
come on,
good.
Robert. Come on, stand up. This is my one
He can't
time to
say
embarrass
no.
him. I know, exactly.
You cannot refuse.
Exactly. Just to tell you a little bit, Robert started his career approximately 17 years ago with our department. He is known as being a dedicated officer with a keen eye for finding criminal behavior. He portrays himself as a tough guy with a hard exterior shell. The reality is, he's a gentle person with a big heart, especially when it comes to our children. Approximately 4 years ago, there was a PAL-sponsored Shop with a PAL during the Christmas time. And several kids had purchased gifts and were in the process of wrapping these gifts on the floor at Mariani's restaurant. And sitting in the middle of the floor with these kids was Robert, helping wrap all these gifts. And at that time, I knew he would make a perfect PAL Director. PAL was formed by Chief Frank Sapina in 1970. The idea was to bring law enforcement, community volunteers, and children together to create a positive environment. PAL currently has 7 active sporting events and sponsors our Police Explorer program. All these programs are designed for the children between the ages of 5 and 18. The PAL program is built on community volunteers. And we have an executive board consisting of Gordon Pound, as you'll meet in a few minutes, our president, Mike Waukee, our vice president, Larry Wolf as our secretary, and Dan Rossimo, I always mess that up, but Rossimo as our treasurer. We also have 8 current board members and countless coaches and volunteers working the Snack Shack to make our program successful. And at this time, I'd just like to thank all of our volunteers that do that. Robert also has been our PAL director, as mentioned, for the past 3 years. He did an outstanding job building up the programs and demonstrating his level of commitment. Robert has made personal sacrifices, spending time away from his family to enrich our community. He built relationships and attended late-night meetings, award presentations, and weekend sporting events. He was always there for the kids. Robert always got things done. He showed others that obstacles were meant to be overcome. We have seen the number of our participants increase over the recent years, and our BMX track was recently recognized the #1 facility in the West and #2 in their nation. And that's something we should all be very proud of. One of my favorite memories of Robert, though, was during our last Christmas gift and food delivery event. After each delivery, volunteers would sing a song, Christmas song at the time. And I still can remember Robert singing Jingle Bells in a deep baritone voice. And in fact, I have it on my phone if anybody wants to see it later on.
We can have it live right now.
It's truly a treat. But in closing, I just would like to end by reading a portion of a letter I received, or actually an email, I believe summarizes Robert's impact on our PAL program. It stated, quote, "Thank you, Bobby, for not only being our superhero, but serving this community with dignity, respect, and love. Our life is richer because of your beat stories, your playful humor, but above all, for showing us that the hardest of cops can have the softest of hearts." That was from Linda, Virginia, Catalina. So with that, Robert, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for recognizing me.
Gordon, wait, we're not going to let you speak yet, okay?
No, I'd rather have Gordon speak.
Gordon, and I see there's a lot of board members here. These board members spend a lot of time and effort helping the children in our community. If you wouldn't mind introducing them so the community can meet them.
If I miss anybody, please tell me.
Okay.
Vice President Mike Waukee, Tim Frazier, Treasurer Dan Rossimo, that's how you say it. Linda Lessa. Anybody else?
Oh, in the back.
Mary Ellen.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Ellen, back there hiding. Mary Ellen Stewart.
Thank you.
Thank you, esteemed city council members and Mayor Gilmore. I am sorry I'm late.
No, you're good.
I was coaching baseball. Rob and I have a kindred spirit, I would say, because we both understand how much it means to the kids of the community and to our own families to have them see us doing what we're doing. A great sacrifice. Rob was there for our kids in Santa Clara. It makes me humbled. It makes me strive to be a better person because of his dedication. He's not a guy that will come out and tell you what he's going to do. He just gets it done. And I think Wally, who's a great guy, his replacement has big shoes to fill. And I think that it's safe to say that every board member feels the same way, that he has done an exemplary job, one that we really feel very honored and humbled, as I said, to be a part of. And I feel, again, honored and humbled to call him a friend. And I hope he's going to stick around to help us when we need him every now and then if we get in a pinch, because there's not a better guy I can think to do the job. And thank you, Rob.
So Officer Martinez, Vice Mayor Watanabe and I are the city council liaisons on the PAL board, so we don't vote on anything. We're just there to listen and offer advice when asked, only when asked. But the fact that you helped organize all these youth programs in Santa Clara, as well as organize your board, I think we need to give you this award. Because you've done a phenomenal job. And I think that, the 3-year term as PAL directors, it's a tough job. It's a lot harder than people think. And it's a 24/7 job. You're always on call. and you're always having to deal with a lot of issues. So thank you very much for what you've done, especially for the citizens and the children in our community. And we do want to give you this recognition, which will come down, but if you'd like to say a few words, I know you love public speaking and coming here, so
I actually just wanted to
yes.
thank the support from you, Mayor, as well as the city council members coming out to our events, especially the Shop with a Pal program. I mean, watching you guys interact with the junior high school kids and helping them shop, it was great to see, and I think the kids took a lot out of it. So thank you for your support.
I think we get more out of it than they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's so fulfilling and so wonderful. And Mariani's, I think is Lou Mariani here somewhere?
Is here.
I thought I saw you. And Linda opening up Mariani's and, you know, having breakfast for the kids and allowing them to wrap the presents and just interacting with them is just, it's such an experience. It's hard to describe, but it's so positive. So thank you for organizing all that as well. So if you'd like to meet us out in the middle here,
Sure.
we'd like to give you this commendation. Thank you. Get the PAL board up here too.
PAL board members, please. You look great.
Chief's up there.
All right, excellent. 3, 1, 2, 3, and one more. Very much.
Okay, back to public presentations. I believe that's where we were. City Clerk, do we have any public presentations? Okay. Okay, Kurt Vartan, you're up first. We all are wondering why the crutches,
Yeah,
but
don't ask.
Yeah,
Don't
okay,
ask.
we won't ask.
Won't ask. All right.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kirk Vartan, and I would like to share the current evolution of the Tri-Village area centered around the Stevens Creek and Winchester intersection. Incredibly, it is less than a half square mile in size and about 300 acres in total. We're all very familiar with the traffic and congestion around Valley Fair and Santana Row. I am sure many avoid this area in general. There are upwards of $2.5 billion in private investment happening here. And I would like to take a couple of minutes to review it with you and provide context for the upcoming public hearing on the Agri-Hood, which is also in the Tri-Village. Let's start with Valley Fair, the highest grossing mall in Northern California. In 2016, its visitor count hit 22 million, an average of over 60,000 visitors a day. With their $1.1 billion in upgrades, it will soon be home to a 3-story flagship Bloomingdale's, a luxury 12-story movie theater with a dedicated chef and cocktails, an additional 650,000 square feet of retail, adding 100-plus retail stores, a restaurant row, tons of open space for the public, and nearly 10,000 parking spaces. That's a lot of upgrades that'll be complete by the end of 2019. Let's walk down the street to Santana Row. In 2012, their visitor count was about 10 million, about 30,000 visitors a day. We all know this number has increased over the past 6 years. Its current expansion is adding over 750,000 square feet of Class A office space, more retail, a roof park, and a world-class pedestrian experience. Look across the street at Santana West, and you'll find a progressive office complex with over 1 million square feet. Back across the street on Winchester, you'll find the Villar mixed-use building that will have the Bay Area's first rooftop public park at 200 feet in the sky. VTA is leading the 280 North Winchester off-ramp, currently tagged at about $150 million. There are other projects, including a senior apartment complex behind Walgreens, a new apartment complex at Santana Row, an 11-story hotel, and lots of future opportunities with the approved Santana Row Valley Fair Urban Village that allows a lot of urban development. And the Agri-Hood is literally across the street from Valley Fair. It will provide a mixed-use, intergenerational, and mixed-income place that embraces the history and spirit of the Valley of Heart's Delight, while providing a leading example of how placemaking can create a destination for all. All of this will change, all of this change is either already happening, is entitled, approved, or will be moving forward. I didn't even touch on the neighboring regional developments like Valco, Apple Park, Facebook, NVIDIA, City Place, and Kylie. And as a student of Don Whedon, I'd like to share a couple images he uses that really resonates with me. Change is coming, and it's coming fast. And I'd like to say this public service announcement was provided by Slice of New York, your Santa Clara's first worker-owned cooperative. Thank you.
No food samples, though. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Next. Anna Vargas Smith. And then Mary Grizzle after that. Please come forward. It's a long walk. You sat in the back. Okay. Good evening.
A great day today, huh? Nice and spring out there. I have a little public service announcement too. I'm Anna Vargas Smith from the Reclaiming Our Downtown group, and last time we met, I had brought up it's a simple request, and it was about putting signage around our old historic downtown. Just some banners, something eye-catching, and sort of creating a place, because the only reason I joined the group is because I'm interested in placemaking, and I'm also interested in community engagement as well. I think some of the success for that area, especially with what I just saw from Kurt, all that expansion and that growth, I think we should get on that train, definitely be part of that, BART's coming right to that little area. We have the oldest university in California sitting there. The Carmelites, I mean, there's the oldest post office in our town. There's the oldest homes in Santa Clara are right around those 8 blocks. So I think creating a stopping point from the train station down the NOMA district, which is the arts district on Franklin Street, all the way to the reopened Franklin Street, straight to the Carmelites, is going to be the ideal stopover for a lot of visitors to Santa Clara. So I definitely, like Kurt, I think we need to get in front of that train, the train that's coming to Santa Clara. Some of the wayfinding kind of signage the benefits of having it are actually just convenience and safety. You get off the train, now you know where you're going. Look, the sign, it's downtown, I'm gonna go there, have a drink, or go to Taplands, or get a coffee at City Lights. Designating the routes also creates a less stressful for the tourists. Like, instead of wandering around, checking your phone, wondering where you're at, what you're looking at, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, you might as well just have proper signage. Another thing that's really important is just improving that user experience. I love going to San Francisco, and I love what they've done with all their areas, which is basically put up signage wherever you are. So I know that a few blocks this way is North Beach. A few blocks that way is the Wharf. So I'm never lost, and I think that would be greatly an improved experience for the people getting off BART or the train right there. And also, and lastly, important for the city is incorporating your branding into it. Put that little lovely Mission City signage everywhere so people know you are in the historical downtown of Santa Clara. So just some of these things I think we're obligated to use and welcome our visitors to Santa Clara, because things are booming around us and we just need to be part of it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for those great suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, good evening.
City Council and Mayor Gilmore. You've probably seen my latest rants on City Place, but I'm here to set some of the things straight. One is I think City Place is going to be a great part of our city. And I believe it'll be great in conjunction with our downtown. I do have an objection, a major objection to these marketing people calling City Place downtown. I don't mind it being called uptown. I think it's going to be a beautiful place and a great place. But I really think if we put the signage out, it will prevent this from happening. A lot of the public is confused as to, I'm out there every day talking to people, and they are really confused. They say, well, downtown is City Place. No, it's not. Downtown is downtown and City Place is uptown. And I think if we put the signage up, it would help all of the people in the old quad with all those beautiful homes. And it would bring in tourism. It would highlight our university, our beautiful university. It would highlight on the other end the Carmelites. And I'm here today to ask who, maybe you can answer my questions. I would like to ask, how do we get this in gear? Who do I talk to? Because I'm new at this and I really don't know what I'm doing, frankly.
I think you kind of know what you're doing, so, but I'm thinking that we don't take action on public presentations, but I'm hearing our chair of our marketing committee in Santa Clara. I know on the marketing committee we talked about, which is Councilmember Davis, we are the ones that put all the banners all over town. We started during Super Bowl. We had some of the brackets for the banners in North Santa Clara, and then we put them around the university and down El Camino and all those other places. But that all went through the marketing committee with recommendations to the full city council. So I think that might be a nice agenda item for the marketing committee. The next, do we know when the next meeting is?
City manager, let her explain.
Yeah.
We're bringing forward a committee restructuring following the January study session on April 23rd to the governance committee, and then from there it will follow to the full council.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Mahan.
Yeah, I had a request to speak. Thank you. Actually, my idea was this, that we refer this by consensus to our Historical Landmarks Commission. They are in charge of street names and other place names. There is an old marker that was put up when downtown got torn down. It's right across the street from the post office.
I've seen it.
Has a few historic photos. It's very dilapidated. It doesn't tell the whole story. On the other side, on Franklin Street, where the university is doing their great outdoor historic walk project in front of their art building, they are putting up a lot of signage along that with the history of Franklin Street, and it impinges on our downtown as well. I mean, I could see this being a project of a HLC in conjunction with the university to get some uniform signage in that area of town. HLC could certainly designate those particular historic spots that should be called out, that are historic and tourist destinations to look at, like the Carmelite Monastery, like some of the walking tour areas that highlight the Morse Mansion, some of the old homes where the jail used to be, where City Hall used to be. I could see this being a great project, and I would ask the council to refer it to HLC to sort of do some groundwork and research, and then perhaps partner with the university and get some of their input and tie it in with that Franklin Street Park or whatever, pedestrian mall, whatever they're calling it, and the historic work that's going on around there.
I've actually have brought this up with the Historical Landmark Commission, various people in that commission, and they love the idea. And I've also spoken to several people at the university, and they love the idea.
And I love the idea.
And,
I think it's great.
The thing is, like, right on Monroe, where the entrance to Franklin Mall is, and the beautiful new building that's being put across the street, in that archway, why couldn't that archway have historical Santa Clara downtown or area?
I think those are all good ideas, but I think I would like by consensus to ask the council if they could refer it back to the city manager, of course, that's the only referral we could make, to perhaps put it on a proper agenda of HLC or committee, whatever might be appropriate.
And I will make sure and get bring it up to the commission for the old homes. I can't think of it now, I'm 75.
The Old Quad Residents Association?
The Old Quad and the University and the Historical Landmark Society or Association. I'd like to bring that up at their next meeting. So.
Councilmember Davis?
So we were restructuring the marketing when we had a new city manager come in, and she wanted to put different things together because some of the stuff you're talking about is also part of the Downtown Revitalization Committee. So there's a lot of moving parts going on right now, so I think I want to refer that back to the city manager to kind of straighten that all out, because there's a lot of overlap happening, so I think we need to kind of let her decide how we're going to get this, but we're going to get it.
Thank you.
Either way. Okay, thanks, Mary.
Thank you very much. Any other public presentations? Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Watanabe. Thank you.
Mary, I just wanted to respond to your statement. I saw your postings on Facebook, and I read the comment, you know, where the what got you upset originated, and all I can say is that the real estate agent that wrote that obviously they don't know Santa Clara. They cannot be from Santa Clara to write something like that, because everybody knows that the downtown, where the downtown is and where the uptown is. So, and we have no problem from in the north side being considered the uptown, and you're more than welcome to remain the downtown and be proud of it. So I just wanted to just share that with you.
I know it's the marketing, like people that don't know.
Exactly.
But they don't know how much harm they're doing, you know, confusing the public.
Anyway, thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say, Councilmember O'Neill originally termed the uptown for City Place, so we wanted that to catch on, that was the uptown, and because nothing can replace the downtown, so. As the uptown, yeah, so we can distinguish. All right, thank you so much for coming. Any other public presentations, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on then to we'll do consent items pulled for discussion, or no, let's pull up Mr. Rajiv Batra and his, because I know he needs to get moving, his written petition. Rajiv, if you'd like to come forward, please. So we have, we're moving it up from the last item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor.
Written petition, request to be placed on a future agenda to discuss benefit issue. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and council members. It's so nice to see you all. It's a different view from here. And Deanna, hello. And thank you for placing my item on this agenda. Without going into any details, Mayor, we've communicated with each other, city and myself, and you have a lot of the information, but I would just like few minutes at your next council meeting to present my case, and also to clarify that previously, maybe it was just to place it on the agenda. The city attorney may have called it potential litigation. There is no such thing. I represent myself, and you know, I worked here for 15 years. I gave my heart and soul. It just floored me when I saw that. But maybe that was a way to put it on the closed session agenda. But my issue is, as an individual, I cannot attend that closed session. So I would like your indulgence to give me, you know, a few minutes just to present my case. I thought this was all done, all the information was provided, but you know, here we are trying to do up and up and, you know, be transparent, and that's what I would like to do at the next meeting. So I request that you allow me to come back to present my case.
Okay, Councilmember Davis? Oh, Councilmember O'Neill. Your name was up here.
Oh, okay, so this, it's good to see you, Mr. Batra, and looking very well. Retirement seems to really, you know, be great for people's physical appearance most of the time. All that stress seems to go away.
Well, that's with this. I keep these pills in the pocket.
So this process that we did, this is like something actually that we put together in the governance committee. So I think part of it is like there's a determination before we have like staff put, if there's more effort that would be needed. So I guess my question is, and perhaps this is to the city manager, at this point, is there any other staff work that has to be done for the public's information? I know that the city attorney's office did put together some information that the council did receive previously. Is there anything else that staff would need to do, or would it to deal with the issue that Mr. Botcher has brought forward?
No, there's no additional staff work. We did include in your packet the TMAC so that you could look at the next couple of agendas if you decide that you do want to put it on an agenda, so that you can balance it out and with respect to other items already calendared for those dates.
Okay.
So is there, maybe we can ask for a motion to refer this to the next available agenda? Oh, Councilmember Caserta, let's go down the line.
I think the simple remedy here is to put it at the next meeting. So my motion is, as Mr. Botcher said, he's only going to be speaking for a few minutes. This is the most transparent thing with the elected officials, which we all are, to make the decisions. So my motion is to bring this to the next meeting, which, Jennifer, is, I was going to April 24th.
April 24th.
So that's my motion. That's 3 weeks from now. That's plenty of time.
Second.
Motion second? Okay. Any other discussion? I don't have any speakers. So Councilmember O'Neill, there you go.
Sorry. So what exactly are we going to do then? We already have a legal opinion. I'm just kind of curious, Mr. Botcher, what exactly is it that you would be doing the next time?
Sure.
Just so we have an expectation, because I think part of it was this is if we want to go forward any further with the discussion.
I just want to share with you how my decisions were made based on your action at the time. And I know I gave you the opinion letter from Berliner Cohen, and then the city got an opinion letter from LCW, I think.
I don't think we actually want to hear this item tonight.
No,
so,
I'm just sharing with
curious
you.
as
I
to
don't know what the question is.
What would we be doing?
So
I just want to present my side of it and what went into my decisions, and just persuade you to consider it in a different light. So that's what I want to bring.
Okay.
From a process standpoint, though, I would ask the city clerk to speak to the process in terms of how the item would be heard. Because the city has already waived its attorney-client privilege on the legal opinion, we could attach that as part of the staff
that was
report.
my next question.
Right, and then there is a process that Jennifer had mentioned earlier that she could put on the record, just so that we're fully transparent in terms of how the item could be held and considered.
Right, thank you, City Manager. Mayor and Council, so reviewing the adding an item on the agenda policy, which is an attachment to this agenda report, this is sort of a two-step process. So Mr. Batra has requested to be placed on the next agenda, and there's been a motion for that. And so should it be approved by the council tonight, we would add it under the same section that this is on, which is general business / public hearing. And Mr. Batra would be afforded 5 minutes to present his information to the council for consideration as an open public meeting. And the material that's provided, that's already been prepared and provided to him previously, would be part of the agenda packet. As the city manager referenced, the attorney-client privilege has been waived on that. So the full package of material would be presented to the council as well as the public.
So that includes, so the city obtained a legal opinion on that. I know Mr. Batra had received, he referenced a letter from Berliner Cohen, and also I believe that there was a letter from a CPA. So all of the city attorney, would all of those items, all the correspondence that's gone on, would all of that be made public?
All of those documents are public records because the attorney-client privilege has been waived. So if it's the pleasure of the council, they can all go out. I mean, any member of the public can request them today. So certainly they can be a part of the packet if that's the pleasure of the council.
Okay, so I think in the interest of transparency, whatever documents that we have should be made available for the public then, if we're going to go down the path.
Okay. Councilmember Mahan?
In addition, would the original motion that was made and approved on this item be part of that packet? And the minutes from that? Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion from the council? Any member of the public? All right, if we could please vote on that motion. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you,
very
Rajiv.
much.
We'll see you in a couple
Really
of weeks.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, the next item we have is the consent items pulled for discussion, and the first item we have is item 2N, as in Nancy, pulled by Councilmember Davis. And that item is, let me read that. Consideration of proposed road repair and accountability act, the project list, Senate Bill 1, the project list for fiscal year 2018-19. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I pulled this to compliment our new Public Works Director. So when I pulled the item, I hope you weren't nervous about it. I was going to ask you a ton of questions. But I just wanted to say that this is probably the most detailed report I've ever seen in my life. When I pulled it up last night at 11 o'clock, I was like, wow, this guy is like Excel to the max. You laid it out. I don't have to ask you any questions. It was there. And I really appreciate this because usually I ask a lot of questions. But thank you for being here. I'm glad Deanna hired you. And I just wanted to commend you on this staff report. And that's why I pulled it. So I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Any member of the public? All right. Can register our votes, please? And that passes. Somebody missing?
We have one member stepped away from the
I'm sorry,
dais.
I didn't see his chair was turned, with Councilmember Caserta absent. Thank you, and thank you for the report. It was really, really good, as Councilmember Davis had mentioned. Okay, the next item we have is, the next poll is agenda item 2P, and that would be Mr. Suds Jane. You pulled this item. And that is amendment number 1 to an agreement for renewable solar and wind energy credit purchases. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I've been a participant of SVP's Santa Clara Green program for over 15 years and have paid a premium of 15% for my electricity that entire time. I'm very pleased that as of January 1st of this year, Santa Clara residents automatically receive 100% carbon-free electricity, and I encourage residents to convert all of their energy source uses to all electric. That means cars, water heaters, furnaces, and stoves. Regarding this contract with the 3 Degrees Group, I'm concerned that there's a restriction for 100% solar, with 80% of that solar from California. As you can see on the chart on page 3, there's a restriction that all this energy come from solar. Onshore wind is actually much cheaper than solar, so I'm disappointed that wind is excluded from this contract. The description of this item on the agenda is also misleading. It says agreement for renewable solar and wind energy credit purchases. There is no wind. I'm pleased that the green premium will be applied to provide new sources of energy, what is called additionality in the industry. So my question is, couldn't SVP actually reduce my premium on Santa Clara Green by adding wind to the mix? Adding wind improves the capacity factor for the energy supply. So my main point is, why constrain SVP from reducing prices for SC Green by artificially constraining it to solar only? Finally, I encourage SVP to be able to better support businesses who want 100% carbon-free electricity without having to rely on RECs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on that? Anyone? Director of Electric Utility. Just give us a few comments on
Oh,
that. Thank you. Welcome.
Absolutely. In the Santa Clara Green Power Program, we've always had kind of a combination of wind and solar in here. And since we've gone to 100% carbon-free, we did solicit input from some of our green power users. And we actually thought that there was a preference for going to 100% solar. So that's what led us in this direction. And because it is cheaper to get actually a combination of solar and wind. And what we did is we ended up with because there was a preference to go 100% solar, we went to a combination of 80% solar in California and 20% solar from other areas in the western United States. So that's what led us to this place. But we certainly can look at other combinations of RECs there.
All right, thank you. And I have a few, maybe you want to stay just for a minute. They're all lining up. Councilmember Mahan, and then Councilmember Davis after that.
Yeah, so does this mean that you will consider wind with a different company or in the future, or what would be what if we wanted to add wind to the portfolio?
Well, we could have to go back and talk to 3 Degrees again and look at that. And that's something that we can do, you know.
And if you were to elect to do that, or if council were to be interested in having you do that, we would not approve this here tonight? Is that correct, or would this come back to us, or what would be the process?
You know, we had, what my suggestion was we'd go forward with this so we can continue to have the program in place, you know, and up and running. We can always go back and talk to 3 Degrees again and modify the agreement if we need to, or work it out with them and bring something back at a future date.
So that would be my motion when it's appropriate. And I would note to Mr. Jane, thank you for bringing this forward, because I think it's important for everyone to know what Silicon Valley Power is doing in the area of, you know, reducing our carbon footprint and encouraging clean green. I too went clean green years and years ago. Or, sorry, not clean green, that's waste. Green energy. Even paying the surcharge, it was worth it, and I still pay less than our PG&E customers do. I also wanted to tell Mr. Jane that Harley Davidson is coming out with an electric motorcycle, and when they do, I promise you, I will go all electric.
That, Councilmember, that's it? Okay, and you had a motion, right? Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Davis, and then
I was going to do the motion, but if she did the
no,
motion already.
we have a motion from Councilmember Mahan.
No, okay, I don't have anything
Okay.
to say.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes, I just wanted, so actually, Director Rockamo, we do still have wind from other sources in our portfolio. It's just not under the administration of this program, through some of our other partnerships with our MSR agency. So we still have those wind assets, correct?
Yeah, yes, in our normal portfolio, we do have the wind assets through MSR. We're also repowering on city property in the Altamont Pass and picking up another 50 megawatts there. And we also have another wind project also in the portfolio with a power purchase agreement.
Right, and with the decommissioning of the San Juan coal-fired plant, I know I think that you've talked about that in northern New Mexico. We're looking at getting into a very extensive wind project there that we would be adding into the portfolio.
Yeah, that's correct. We have another 150 megawatt wind project that we're looking at in New Mexico that we would be bringing to council shortly for approval.
So, and the issue about a little bit of the 20% mix of non-California solar, and that's strictly related to the pricing, isn't it?
Yes, that's strictly pricing, right?
Okay, great. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kolstad, no? You're not? Okay. Very good. So we have a motion, and I believe there was a second. Yes, thank you. And a second. No other discussion on the dais. Anyone in the public like to speak on this issue? Okay, if you please can register your vote. And that passes unanimously. I think we have one more item, and that one is pulled by Councilmember Watanabe, and that was 2M, the all-inclusive playground funding, including grant application to the County of Santa Clara a letter of intent with Magical Playground Foundation and related budget amendment. Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. I was really excited to see this as part of the consent calendar, and I wanted to pull it because I've seen several of our neighboring cities have this playground added to their public parks, and so it's really exciting. The city of Palo Alto presently has one in Mitchell Park, and then Sunnyvale just approved it. And so when I saw that Santa Clara had the opportunity, I thought this is wonderful. So I wanted to make sure we brought it forward. And I did have a couple of questions, just because of the plans to revamp Central Park, and I was curious. I see Pineda is coming forward. Do we have an idea, I mean, if the grant is approved, when the project might start?
Manuel Pineda, Assistant City Manager. We don't have a schedule for the project yet. We are taking it one step at a time. So the first step will be the grant application, and after that, we would enter into agreement with Magical Bridge Foundation. At that point, we would have a better idea on the schedule for the project.
Beautiful. Yeah, because, and the other concern was just, with the plans to revamp Central Park, that, it wouldn't conflict or, just get in the way of the plans that have already been shown to us. And, there'll be some way to incorporate this great project within those plans.
Yeah, and certainly, and Director Jim Teixeira, who's in the audience today, he did meet with Magical Bridge Foundation at the park itself, and park staff is doing a wonderful job coordinating the Central Park Master Plan. They're fully involved in this project as well, so they'll make sure that all the pieces come together.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sure. Okay, with that, I move for move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. See any discussion here? Anyone in the audience? Okay, if you could please register your vote. That passes unanimously. Next item we have is the public hearing general business. The first we have is the First Amendment to exclusive negotiations agreement with Core Affordable Housing LLC for the barrack site located at 1834 Worthington Circle, and there's an assessor's parcel number here on the agenda. So the recommendation is to approve the First Amendment to exclusive negotiation agreement with Core Affordable Housing LLC, extending the term of the agreement for the barrack site located at 1834 Worthington Circle, Santa Clara. Ms. Shikata.
Thank you, Mayor Gilmore and the members of City Council. I'm Ruth Shikata, the Assistant City Manager. I don't have a formal presentation tonight. I just wanted to give you a brief update of where we're at and to respond to any questions that you might have. We have been working on this project for a couple years now, and we are asking for an extension tonight because the scope of the project has actually been extended because of some of the things that, the work schedules that we needed to accomplish. So one of the first things, as noted in your agenda report, is the city needed to work with the state in order to get an extension on the deadline it had on the deed, which required the start of construction by January 2017. And so in order for us not to avoid having the state take the property back, we worked with the state to get an amendment. Soon thereafter, we embarked on a contract with the Project for Public Spaces, and one of their focus areas was this particular site. And they provided some outreach and some visioning, and brought back a report to council in the summer of last year. So with that report, the developer undertook the recommendations, some of the recommendations in that report, made changes to the site plan and resubmitted it back in. So for that reason, those reasons, we're asking for this extension to the ENA. Under the current project schedule, the EIR is due to be released within the next week or two, and then it'll start another round of engagement with the public to take a look at the entitlements and to request any responses. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. So like I said, I know the ER, they've had scoping meetings. I haven't been able to participate in that or to look at that. So Mr. Vartan did set kind of the context of what's going on around there. And so this project has changed over time. Originally, it was just going to be like 165 senior units on the 6 acres, which was a pretty low density. And then with the end of redevelopment, we had to have another way to kind of help finance it. So that's where more of the market rate units came in. And so in the scoping or in your discussions, in light of everything that's going on around there, has there been any discussion about increasing the density to add some more units to that site?
Well, so when the original project proposal came in, it came in at more than 165 senior units, and it had some market rate units and townhomes. So that general scope has not changed significantly since the project was selected 2 years ago. And so what PPS and their recommendations were to maybe to create more of a public gathering spaces that would create a place, if you will, by rearranging a little bit some of the buildings and how the agri-hood area faced the street and having a retail position in a different location.
Right, but so, I mean, so I understand that, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into that. I was just wondering if there had been any discussion of, adding, making the buildings 1 or 2 stories higher to add more units.
So not, the developer has wanted to maintain their general project description, and so the EIR reflects that general project description. It has some flexibility in it, but not a significant increase in density. So if the developers are here, if you would like to a formal response from them as far as their consideration of increasing the overall density.
Well, I would be, just because I said, we have so few pieces of land available, and in considering what the rest of that area is going to look like, I just would, if our friends from CORE, if you're able to speak to that just briefly.
Well,
or if you want to take other
no,
questions.
I don't see any other council lights at the moment, because I know that Mr. Cantori, I think, is going to give us a presentation.
Okay, yes, okay.
So are there any other questions? Councilmember O'Neill, do you have any other questions for him before, or anyone on the council? Okay, that's fine. So this is perfect segue into that. Mr. Cantori, you're next. So he can then answer your question. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Vince Cantori with the Core Companies. Proud to be standing here before you tonight. First off, I would like to thank staff, Andrew Crabtree and Ruth Shikata in particular, for their collaboration and continued efforts to move this project across the finish line. It's been 2.5 years since we were selected through the city's RFP process, and it will be close to 3 when our zoning application is considered by council this summer. Throughout this time, we've held countless community meetings, had a council study session, went through a very public placemaking effort, redesigned the site, and have continued to maintain positive and respectful dialogue with all project stakeholders despite any policy differences. We must stay centered with our collective intent to deliver a wonderful affordable housing project that balances the project's density and site design with the needs of the adjacent community while maximizing public benefit through the incorporation of a truly innovative agricultural open space. As you may know, there's been a lot of recent activity on the project. We resubmitted our planning application in response to the PPS recommendations in January and have been very busy incorporating staff comments into the project. We anticipate public circulation of our EIR later this month, and in addition, we are working to progress the DDA with the city manager's office as well. Tonight, we are focused on amending the project's E&A. We're not here to discuss site design, albeit with your comments, which I'll answer in a moment. Now is the time to move the project forward. And I would urge that we not overburden the site, either with requests for increased density or additional non-residential uses that are not easily financed. Seniors have been waiting for affordable housing on this site for close to 13 years. We urge you to accept the city manager's recommendation as outlined in the staff memo. The project is teed up for success, and we appreciate your continued support of our efforts. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill, are you satisfied with your answer there? All right. Councilmember Caserta.
Nice to see you, Vince. And can you, I think you're right on, the time for densities and things like that are at a different date, in my humble opinion. But I really wanted you to address the community outreach that you have done, specifically in the last 6 months. And this is something 4.5 years ago I petitioned Kirk about. And can you also address how you've talked to Catalyst SV or Mr. Vartan specifically? Because that's important to me.
Yeah, sure. There's been a few efforts. I'll speak about it generally. We did meet with key stakeholders at our architect's office to give them a tour of the AgriHood site prior to the project submittal to gather any input or understand any key concerns. After the submittal, there were meetings with stakeholders as well to discuss aspects of the site design, the agricultural open space, how it would function. Not only were there meetings with Kirk Vartan in particular, we also had meetings with some of the key stakeholders from Midtown Village as well as our partners at the California Native Garden Foundation to discuss the design.
So you brought individual and group stakeholders actually in with your architects as well?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the council members? All right, thank you. I have a few public members here that have requested to speak. The first one is Dawn Tran. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore and council members. My name is Don Tran, and I'm here on behalf of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group to express our support for the AgriHood development at the former barracks site. You know, the leadership group, we represent more than 375 Silicon Valley-based businesses in public policy matters, issues, and programs as it relates to the economic vitality and quality of life of our region. Collectively, as a whole, our members provide 1 in 3 private sector jobs. To open up, we want to commend the City of Santa Clara and core companies for their ongoing collaboration and continued investment towards developing communities within our region. By amending and extending this ENA, this will allow for this continued public and private partnership. We believe that AgriHood represents a unique opportunity to really integrate housing and open spaces to create a thriving, sustainable, mixed-use community. You know, the 361 units of mixed income housing not only adds much needed housing stock to our region and to the city of Santa Clara, we're very much encouraged by the number of below market rate units and the affordability component, which will really help address the crucial needs of housing for seniors, senior veterans, and also the workforce. In closing, the leadership group, we look forward to working together to ensure that quality developments such as AgriHood are approved. Thank you again for your leadership, city staff for their work on this, and for the consideration of our comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Kurt Vartan, you're next. Slow down there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I support the extension of CORE's ENA for the AgriHood. This is going to be an awesome project. It will provide much-needed housing, educational programming, social spaces, and vision for what future development should look like. CORE is highly reputable and will prove itself a leader in this newly defined urban AgriHood space. We're all excited to get shovels in the ground. However, before the project comes before Council, let's relook at what the EIR studied in terms of maximum unit count and commercial square footage, and strive to hit those targets. Let's make sure that as many people as possible can enjoy this incredible place. We often get caught up in today's issues and frustrations, but today's problems might not be the same 4 years from now when the project opens. Having ground floor options and flexibility now makes future unknowns less problematic. And we've seen what a solid partner CORE is. In one of their recent San Jose projects, they increased the amount of retail as a result of strong council leadership. And when we hear of buildings being too tall, let me offer this. In keeping with the Type 5 construction the project is currently utilizing, here's what 2 additional floors could look like. Looks pretty good. There's, oops. You just restart that. Thank you. So there's before, and after. It looks pretty good. There's also an additional little structure in front to activate the space even more. With the incredible amenities on site, across the street, and with a 10-minute walk, the agri-hood will last much longer than our lifetimes. And as owners of the public land, the city's time horizon is measured in decades, not years. The City of Santa Clara, core companies, and the agri-hood can be the catalyst for change we need. The EIR studied a larger product, so let's deliver on the full potential of housing and retail this site can support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other speakers for cards. Please come forward. Anyone who'd like to speak. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, honorable council members. My name is Matthew Reed. I'm the policy manager at Silicon Valley at Home, and I am a proud resident of Santa Clara. We are pleased to support the agri-hood development before you tonight and to support the staff's recommendation to extend the ENA with the core companies. Santa Clara is in need of more housing in general and more affordable housing in particular. We have consistently added more jobs than we have added housing. Most recent figures show nearly 1.8 jobs for each employed resident able to live in Santa Clara. This is fueling the market pressures that put most of our housing out of reach for many of our longtime residents and workers. And we, fortunately, like most of our peer cities in the region, have not kept up with the production of affordable housing necessary to meet the needs of our residents and our low-wage workers. We currently have well over 9 low-wage jobs for every affordable home in Santa Clara. And there are few opportunities for even middle-income families. This is an important location for Santa Clara, and these new units are long awaited. Most importantly, this project represents both a significant number of affordable units and an impressive level of affordability. With 181 rent-restricted units, over half of the total, 165 of which will be affordable to very low and low-income seniors, this is a significant project. We do want to commend the city staff for taking these challenges seriously. And while there have been some recent heartbreaking rejections of much-needed housing in Santa Clara, there's an impressive pipeline of opportunity. We look forward to further opportunities to work with this body and with the city staff to expand housing opportunities in Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Paul Bickmore, and I support this because Santa Clara and this whole region needs more housing, both market rate and affordable, and this is that. And for the various reasons that have been mentioned earlier, I will just say that because the developer is hesitant to add more density, I encourage you to find other opportunities in our city to allow that and find more ways to reduce the cost of housing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm not come prepared, but looking at the picture the gentleman has showed from before to after, looks like the number of homes have increased, but what he's showing is like number of cars and the people on the ground have not. But when the number of homes increase, all others will increase as well. And if there is a way that we can guarantee that with these number of homes, how many of them are going to be affordable? How many of them are going to be available for senior citizens? If we can come up with that number, I think we can make our lives much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Okay. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to approve The First Amendment to exclusive negotiating agreement with Core Affordable Housing, LLC, extending the term of the agreement for Barrack site located at 1834 Worthington Circle.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember Kolstad.
Thanks, Mayor. I recall 18 years ago when Councilmember Caserta and I ran for the city council, and his dream for this parcel was open space, and mine was affordable housing. And we got open space and affordable housing and some market rate housing. And not only do we both win, but the city wins, because this is so much of a better project than what either of us had envisioned 18 years ago. But I have to say, 18 years is a long time to get a project built. And I hope there is something, I'm going to vote for this because I want it yesterday, but I hope there's something we can do to fast track. I know the developer's ready to get his shovels and his tractors over there and work, and I know the city wants to get this new housing that's desperately needed, as this last speaker just mentioned. The faster we can get this built, the better it'll be for a lot of families who will then have a place to live. So I hope everybody supports this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes, I just wanted to address the concern raised by the resident that as we go through the process and as we get to the final development agreement and DDA, all the various contracts, that there will be much, it will be laid out as to what will be the numbers of the affordable, and the majority of that will be for, because this project was originally intended, the city bought the land with the intent of building senior housing, and so that and particularly with the emphasis on having some housing for senior veterans, I think that is the bulk of what the affordable, but we will have time to nail down what those numbers will be, so that will be clear before the construction starts.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I had a fairly long conversation with Mr. Vartan on the phone this morning, and I had a very short conversation with Paul Ring from Core Project this afternoon, interrupted by a technician on the phone trying to get my printer back online, which took all afternoon, by the way. So I really liked a lot of Mr. Vartan's ideas. He has some really good ideas, especially when it comes to placement of workforce housing in this development and others as they come up down the line. He pointed out, rightly so, that the millennials, the new generation coming up, don't have the same housing needs or even wants that we of the older generations have, or that families may have. So there is a need for that kind of niche housing, and I would like to see it in this development. I just hesitate because I think at this point, this project has come so far and it's taken so long. They cooperated with the public spaces, placemaking activity. They incorporated a lot of those ideas. I think it improved the project. I think the agricultural area is going to be fantastic. I think it's larger than I would have expected, so it's going to have an impact on people's lives to be able to go there and work in the garden and have that kind of experience. So we really need to move this project along. I'm hoping that some of the ideas that have come up on these, smaller units, workforce housing, can get incorporated into other projects as we move forward. But I certainly think that this project needs to move forward, and I don't know if by consensus we can pick up on what Councilmember Kolstad suggested, and that is to get this on a fast track, get it kind of expedited as far as the permitting process goes, because I really think this project needs to get built yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of meeting with Mr. Cantori and Mr. Ring recently, and to see the update to the project. And it's very exciting to see how this whole project has evolved, and I'm fully supportive. Obviously, I seconded the motion, but we needed this project Yeah, we needed it 2 years ago, and we need to fast track it because the cost of housing is increasing, construction is increasing, materials is increasing. So really, the faster we can get the shovels in the ground and get this project built, the better. I mean, I understand and appreciate Mr. Vartan's comments, but I think right now what we really need to do is just get this project completed so we get some much needed housing for the residents. As I talk to people in the community, I hear more and more, the need for affordable housing. So I know we talked about that the other day. So really appreciate you coming forward again, and just look forward to seeing finally this shovels in the ground. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that what we're actually voting on tonight is just to extend the exclusive negotiating agreement. So I'm sure the developers appreciate all the comments that were made on the site-specific plan. So I'm sure you're taking that all into consideration. This is a really important project for Santa Clara, and it's a project that's had a lot of visibility, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. All across the country, people are talking about this project. So I say yes, fast track it. However, it still has to go through our process. And I think what's made this project pretty great is all the input from the community. So I don't want to take any of that away by fast tracking because they're following the normal legal process. That we want to make sure that, especially the people that live around that project, that they have an opportunity to weigh in, at the appropriate public hearings for the Planning Commission and the City Council, as we go forward. But I think what this project is growing into is a really great project, and I think, activating even more of the ground floor space and, and looking at the density, whether it's appropriate or not, will come out during the public hearing. So I know you're on your way through the process. We support you going through that process, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to come out with, a project that belongs to all of us, that we've all had the opportunity to weigh in, because it has taken a long time and there's a lot of eyes on it and a lot of inclusion. So thank you for going through the process, and hope you've heard some of the things that were discussed this evening. So we have a motion and a second on the floor, and we're just waiting to weigh in on our vote. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Back to work. Back to work. All right. Thank you. And thank you all for everyone who came to speak on this item. The next item we have is to approve the second amendment to development agreement with SI 55 LLC for the property located at 2200 Lawson Lane in Santa Clara. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Crabtree, Director of Community Development, and as just noted, the project in front of you is a request for a second amendment to a development agreement with SI 55 LLC. The applicant is the Sobrato organization. And the development agreement was initially approved in 2008 and amended in 2013. Extended for 5 years so that it would expire this year. And that's the reason for the request from the applicant for an extension. Also part of the action tonight is to note and file that there was an addendum prepared for the final environmental impact report to address the environmental review need. This development agreement would pertain to what we refer to as the West Office Campus. It's a project of about 306,000 square feet. 2 5-story buildings as envisioned, some common space, and as noted, parking ratio of 4 spaces per 1,000. The site, as you can see, is located on, was noted, is located on Lawson Lane. It's a high-intensity office R&D site there at the interchange, and I'll just go through this fairly quickly. It's on San Tomas Expressway, and there. So the project has 2 phases. The first phase, the East Campus, has already been constructed, includes the exact same amount of development as was approved previously for the the second phase, the West Campus, which has not been constructed. So both phases as entitled would include 306,900 square feet, Commons building of 17,958 square feet, and parking structures, 1 5-level, 1 4-story. Side area. These are pictures of the portion that was already constructed, and ahead there, sorry. And then these are photos of the existing site, the western portion, which is vacant in the lower corner, and then a rendering of the proposed project. So you can see it really matches what was previously entitled. So the applicant has basically requested that the development agreement be extended for 2 years. The development agreement provides some protections to the applicant that they can go forward with the project as previously entitled, maintains and provides some safeguards for them in that regard. When the city enters into a development agreement with a developer, it's a voluntary agreement on their part. It provides some opportunity for the city to have sort of a contractual commitment on the part of the developer to do some things beyond what would normally be required through the city's regular permitting process. So in this particular case, the development agreement included a contribution to the city's housing trust fund, which was already made by the developer previously, and a payment of local traffic impact fees, which the developer has already paid. The development agreement requires payment of building development fees based on the schedule at the time of the permits are issued, which in some cases they might have been locked in. So this is a benefit to the city in that the city collects the fees that are in place at the time. The development agreement also recognizes that there's benefit to the city in having job growth, new development of that type that supports the employment in Santa Clara. With the proposed 2-year extension, the developer has agreed to add some more benefits into the development agreement for the city. First would be a payment of regional traffic fees at a higher rate than was previously approved. And the prior development agreement, it was $1 per square foot. They've agreed to raise that to $2.50 per square foot. The city is working on new water impact fees. They've agreed to pay those fees that are in place at the time they do the development. And then going through the Planning Commission process, the Planning Commission recommended some additional items, and 3 of those, which are noted in the staff report, 3 of those have the applicant has agreed to include in the project. They're committing to a LEED Gold construction or equivalent. They have agreed to increase the TDM program, that's Transportation Demand Management Program, measures to reduce single automobile vehicle traffic for the project from 5 to 10%, and to add more charging stations for electrical vehicles into the project parking. So with that, staff is recommending that the council note and file the addendum, the environmental documents, and approve the Second Amendment to the development agreement between the city of Santa Clara and SIA 55 LLC. And available for any questions.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, thank you. So it looks like the developer, the LLC affiliated with Sobrato company, that they did agree to most of the recommendations and requests from the Planning Commission, but the one that looks like maybe that it wasn't was the additional contribution into the, since it was considered a pipeline project and wasn't going to be subject to the housing fees. So that was the only piece of it that didn't get approved, that the Sobrato is not proposing to comply with.
That's correct. That was
correct?
that was an additional recommendation of the Planning Commission that the developer make a $500,000 contribution. As noted, the developer previously made one a contribution when the project was initially approved. So this would have been an increase. The developer considered it, but they did not agree to include that in the project. Staff's recommendation is still to approve the project, sort of taking into account the, sort of the historic character of this document. It was previously negotiated and approved, and sort of what's reasonable in light of what the developer is requesting, which is a 2-year extension.
So I'm pleased to see that at least it went to a 10% transportation demand management program for the reduction in vehicle miles traveled to this location. Will there be any other discussion of what exactly will be contained within the TDM before all the project is builders? Will that, at this point, if we go ahead and extend this agreement, that after the project is completed, that then they will submit the details of their TDM?
That's correct. So we would go for, if they go forward with the development, we would review the TDM program at that time, and then we do have a reporting back process in place that once TDMs are adopted, we report back to Planning Commission normally on that. I would just also add as clarification on the housing impact fee that's been adopted. It only applies to commercial development that is entitled after August 1st. So, this project was entitled about 10 years ago. So
I remember I was on the Planning Commission when we approved this. Yeah. Okay. So that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add, there was one other provision that the Planning Commission asked. They asked that the regional traffic fee go from $2.50, which is what's currently proposed under the development agreement, to $3.25, and the applicant declined to provide that. But they did provide, as he mentioned, the TDM measures, the electrical vehicle parking, and the LEED Gold standard.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. All right. I don't see any other questions. Development Director, thank you. So cards from the public, I have Suds Jane. Mr. Jane. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm here just representing myself, not the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did vote 6-0 on the 5 amendments to the development agreement. The motivation there was that, the reason why there are time limits on these development agreements is conditions change, and conditions have changed so that we have a affordable housing crisis and that we also have a traffic crisis. So the Planning Commission had tried to address those, and because you're approving a development agreement, you can ask whatever you want from the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other cards. Is there any member of the public would like to speak on this issue? All right. No more public. Council, what is your pleasure? Anyone? Vice Mayor Watanabe.
I'll take a stab at it. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you for the update. I took a look at the video, and I also spoke to Mr. Peter Tsai this afternoon about the project, and I would like to make a motion, let me come back here, to adopt approve the introduction of an ordinance approving a second amendment to the development agreement between the City of Santa Clara and the developer in incorporating some of the, I see one of the options, so of the alternatives, where there are 3 alternatives. Number 2 states to incorporate one or more of the changes recommended by the Planning Commission, and I would like to recommend that we adopt approving the Second Amendment and include the items to achieve the LED gold equivalency of the building design, installing the electrical vehicle charging stations, and also to implement and manage a more comprehensive TDM program. And that is my motion.
Could I just clarify that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're moving staff recommendation along with the new project benefits? Only you're not, so you're proposing 3 of the 5?
Yes.
Not the payment of the additional traffic fees or the payment of the new water impact fees?
Yeah, Mr. Crabtree, could you bring up the list that you provided, please?
Yeah, so there was 5 new.
Yeah.
I thought the planning, I just want to clarify your motion.
Yeah. Because.
So if the intent was to include the ones that the applicant had agreed to, that did include the water. It includes the.
There was a slide, excuse me, there was
Yeah,
a slide called
there.
Project Benefits New.
Right.
Yes.
So
Number 9.
Yes.
There, right there.
Yeah. So
yes.
So it includes the traffic impact fee, but at the $2.50 per square foot level, not the higher level recommended by the Planning Commission. They have agreed to pay the new water impact fees that would be in place. They've agreed to LEED Gold, to increase the TDM program requirement from 5% to 10%, and then to add the EV parking spaces.
Yes. Yep, those were the items
those
that I
the
wanted
5?
to add, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I believe you've been provided with a ordinance that includes those measures.
The ordinance does include these 5 items. That's what I thought. Okay. And that's the motion, so it's staff recommendation with
Yes,
the
ma'am.
attached ordinance. And there was a second over here? Okay. All right. Any discussion on that? Anyone wanting to speak? Councilmember O'Neill.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to.
City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to clarify, this was all very last minute because we're trying to get the DA extended before it expires. So the Planning Commission meeting was last week. We negotiated with the developer over the last few days, and so in front of you on the dais tonight is the new version of the development agreement that includes the 3 measures that Councilmember Watanabe mentioned. So if your motion tonight is to approve the ordinance with the revised development agreement that was provided at the dais, that would accomplish.
Does it include those 5? You said 3. Does it include all of those?
It includes all of those 5 there. When I said 3, I meant the 3 additional measures of the 5 that the Planning Commission provided.
Okay.
We started with those 2. We added the lower 3. We didn't add
it includes all of that?
Yes, all 5.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So we have a motion and a second. No other discussion? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is action on use permit appeal and rezoning at 281 Serena Way Daycare. Is this a public hearing, City Attorney? Do we conduct this as a public hearing? Or?
Yes, Mayor, it's a public hearing.
Okay. Yes, Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, I'm Andrew Crabtree, Director of Community Development. And the item in front of you has 2 components to it. One is a request for a rezoning from single-family zoning district to general office of the subject property at 281 Serena Way. And that's an item that's normally a council decision item. Planning Commission makes a recommendation, and then council takes the final action. The other component is a use permit that the Planning Commission takes an action on. In this case, they took action to deny the requested use permit that would allow outdoor play area associated with a daycare, and then the applicant has appealed that denial to the City Council. So the City Council is considering both the rezoning and the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of the use permit. The property in question in 281 Serena Way is located just north of Stevens Creek Boulevard on the west side of Serena Way. It's adjacent to auto dealerships to the south and west, or parking used by auto dealerships to the south, and then to a single-family neighborhood to the north and to the east on Serena Way. The facility would make use of an existing residence. Site changes would include the addition of 4 parking spaces at the rear of the site. The development requires 3 parking spaces per our code, so they have 1 addition more than it required. They have also added 2 drop-off parking spaces at the front of the site. There is a 955 square foot playground area, and then sort of a circulation around the house, the entry on the north side of the house, circulating around to exit at the south side of the house. In terms of operations, as proposed, there are 2 classrooms in the residence. There would be 2 teachers on site at all times. There would be a total of 28 students. Operating hours for the daycare facility would be 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And in our review of the proposal, we looked at general plan. General plan includes a policy which encourages that daycare centers be located in different areas of the city, excluding light and heavy industrial use areas designated for light and heavy industrial areas. So this site has a residential designation, so consistent with the general plan land use policy 5331, P22. This project meets the intent there, providing for a daycare facility that provides a benefit to the community in terms of the use. We note that the current zoning is R1 6L. They've proposed a rezone to general office. In general office district, daycare facilities like this are permitted by right use, so that if the zoning were approved, the daycare in of itself would then be permitted by right use. But the outdoor play area under our zoning code requires a use permit. We anticipate that parking and traffic related to the project could be a concern of the community, and we had a traffic consultant provide an analysis that looked at the number of peak hour trips that would be generated by the use, and found that there's sufficient capacity on the roadway that would not be an impact. The Planning Commission hearing was conducted on January 24th. There were 7 members of the public that spoke in opposition to the project, and sort of the concerns raised focused around the negative impacts that they feel they're already experiencing due to the car dealerships, particularly with employees from those car dealerships parking into the neighborhood, the potential traffic impacts from the new daycare use, and then a concern that converting the residential use to a commercial use would sort of be an encroachment of commercial uses into the neighborhood that have a negative impact on their property values and quality of life. The commission, after hearing the public testimony, voted unanimously to recommend denial of the rezoning request to the council, and then they did take action to deny the use permit for the outdoor play area. So as laid out in the report to the council, there are a number of alternatives for the council. Those that basically would approve the project include approving the requested rezoning, approving the appeal and overturning the Planning Commission's denial of the use permit, or alternatively approving the rezoning and the use permit with additional conditions of approval should the council see the desire to do so. There are also alternatives related to basically denying the proposed project. One would be you could approve the rezoning of the property to commercial use, but continue to deny the use permit, or you could deny the zoning as well. If the council were interested in adding additional conditions, for example, council could look at reducing the number of students currently proposed to be 28, or requiring that there be a staff member assigned to basically provide traffic control during the primary drop-off and pickup times at the front of the site. And that was something that was discussed at the Planning Commission hearing. So with that, staff has conducted analysis, determined that this project would be consistent with our general plan policies, As proposed, it would conform with the zoning code, applicable zoning code requirements. And so for those reasons, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning and approval of the appeal and overturning of the Planning Commission's denial of the use permit. With that, we're available for any questions.
Okay. Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you. So Director Crabtree, I do remember a few years ago we had a similar controversy on Harold Avenue, once again down close to Stevens Creek Boulevard, and there was initially some opposition from the neighbors. And that was in an area that was already kind of some commercial buildings, and so I just am curious, that project was ultimately approved. Do you know off the top of your head, have there been any complaints registered? Again, I'm trying to remember if they had a use permit, but it was just a couple of streets down on Harold.
I'm not aware of any complaints related to that. I know fairly recently we had another project where there was a concern from adjacent commercial use about an outdoor play area and whether or not it was suitable for the kids because it was too close to commercial. So ultimately that was approved as well. But in this case, there was some benefit in a sense by having it as a transition between a commercial and a residential area that the use kind of fits halfway in between the two.
Yeah, so one of so I mean, I think you certainly want to hear the rest of the testimony and the comments. It seems like there is a large need for daycare, and it seems that, that with them having parking spaces in the back and having that driveway, that in some ways that would be a lot better circulation, and having that kind of, daycare, there would be actually less like chance that cars are going to be there for a long time, because most parents would be coming for a very brief period of time to drop off their children. And then they would be proceeding to their workplace. But the one thing that did kind of catch my eye was that they were saying 28 students with 2 teachers, and I don't know if they would have aides, but included in the packet was information from the state of California about ratios. And I mean, I thought this was billed as a preschool, and because I thought 14-to-1, that's a pretty high ratio for a daycare. And so when I look at the information, and I'm not sure if this came from the staff or if it came from a member of the public submitted this. So to get to 14-to-1, that's by state standards, that only applies to like children between the ages of 5 and 10 and over. So I mean, so that would be, to me, almost sound like more like an after-school program. So was there any? It just seems like that wouldn't meet the state licensing. I know that that's perhaps not your department's jurisdiction, but did they say anything about that they would have actually additional aides or whatever so that they would be in compliance with the state licensing?
Well, my understanding is that for the purposes of the use permit, they were sort of looking at what the maximum number of kids they might have in the facility. And so, they were looking for the flexibility to be able to structure how they operate so that, they could have that age group or staffing in a way that they reach that number. And then really for any more information, I would defer to the applicant. But they would certainly be governed by the state regulations, and which, so they would be in compliance with that, would be our expectation.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. I don't see any other council members, but I had a question, Mr. Crabtree. So because the Serena Way is so close to Stevens Creek Boulevard and all the car dealerships, and I know there's driving up and down the street and test cars and people parking and things like that, was there any discussion or any investigation as to parking on the streets from employees of the businesses on Stevens Creek, and any discussion about that or investigation about how that street's being used right now?
So it's my understanding again that also in the past this issue has come up. It's not a new issue. There have been times in which the city has kind of done outreach to the auto dealership owners, operators, to see if they can mitigate that by having their employees park on site. there's certainly there's more severe actions that could be taken, like limiting the hours that you can park on the street, or having even permit parking system.
There's no permit parking there now,
No,
right? Or timed
no.
parking, it's,
Right.
yeah.
And those are things
Okay.
that could be done to really force the employees not to park in those areas, but they also have impacts on the neighbors. And, so, there's not always, clear support in the neighborhood to implement those kinds of measures, but sort of an in-between interim, is an in-between step. There could just be that outreach done. In my experience, usually when we've met with car dealership owners, they understand the concern, and they'll address it with their employees, and we'll look at, do they have parking on their facilities, or they can accommodate them. There's always a tension there. They want to put as many cars on their sites as they can, but we can work with them to address that.
It's an unusual street in the fact that it's surrounded by the commercial on one side and surrounded by all multifamily apartments all around it. So that's also impacting the street in terms of the extra cars from the multifamily apartments as well. So they might be getting hit on all sides, which may be a factor in maybe some of the testimony that's happening with this daycare from the development all around this particular single-family street. So anyways, okay, well, thank you. I don't see anyone else from the council, so we'll go now to the appealing party, which is the applicant. If you'd like to come forward. Good evening.
Evening. Sorry.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Angela Sue, the daughter of the applicant and owner of 281 Serena Way, Mr. and Mrs. Sue, and I'll be speaking on their behalf. So I'll try not to reiterate too much of what was said during the staff presentation. And also, we'd like to thank our team and the City Planning Division for all their help and guidance through every step of this project, especially Rebecca Bustos, who isn't here today. So tonight, I hope to convince the council to believe, as we do, that this childcare center will provide a critically needed service to the community, and in a way that minimizes negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood as much as possible. And I hope, in addition to these factors, that the proposed center's uniquely ideal location, the nature of the service it will provide, and the general plan's emphasis on encouraging childcare centers in such locations and treating them as the providers of the important community service that they are, will justify our request for the approval of the rezoning and use permit that will allow for a childcare center at this location. Also, I'll try to address the relevant concerns presented at the Planning Commission meeting and by several neighbors as thoroughly as possible. So, we first approached the city in 2015 before we purchased the property to inquire about the possibility of opening a childcare center there. I don't remember whether this was mentioned, but we live next door at 271 Serena Way. So Mrs. Sue was told it was possible potentially to open a childcare center there, and so they purchased the property and began the process. So after purchasing the property in January 2016, the city requested a preliminary review, and Mrs. Sue was asked by the city to conduct a preliminary survey among the neighborhood to gauge support. So she went door to door to inform neighbors and gather signatures on a petition in support of a proposed daycare of up to 26 kids, 26 because of licensing requirements regarding the size of the outdoor play area. So she received 10 signatures in support from several neighbors. In January 2017, she submitted an application for the zoning and use permit. In February 2017, a sign was posted on the front yard of the property detailing the rezoning and use permit request. And in June of 2017, we commissioned Hexagon Transportation Consultants to do a traffic study. And they found that through an analysis of the total number of trips and AM and PM peak hour trips as described that it would not be substantially affected and traffic from the daycare could be accommodated both by Serena Way and by Stevens Creek. So they also found proposed parking on site adequate for teachers and parents dropping off and picking up their kids. So, sorry. So early this year, several neighbors sent emails to the city expressing concerns that were also brought up during the Planning Commission meeting, which we addressed during the meeting, and I'll try to address again here. So during the Planning Commission meeting, the commissioners gave as reasons for denial, as mentioned, traffic, inconsistencies with general plan, the lack of a need for a licensed child care center at the location as opposed to a family daycare, and decrease in housing values. So regarding traffic, that was already mentioned, so I won't elaborate on that unless there's more questions. So for the general plan, the proposed use of a childcare center would not be strictly consistent with the area's designation as medium-density residential, but the general plan does recognize the value of encouraging childcare centers and specifically states that we should allow new public and quasi-public uses, including places of assembly such as places of worship, schools, emergency shelters, and convalescent homes in all general plan designations, provided that access is from a collector or larger roadway and that they are compatible with planned uses on neighboring properties and other applicable general plan policies. So as defined by the general plan, public and quasi-public uses do include childcare centers. And the property is located near Stevens Creek Boulevard, a major arterial, which is consistent with that general plan statement. So it also states, as mentioned, I won't repeat that. So this is just a diagram from Google Maps of an overhead view of the location. So as you can see, the property is located near Stevens Creek Boulevard, and also it's both located between commercial and residential areas, as opposed to in the middle of a residential neighborhood and or in the middle of a commercial area, which is considered ideal for a daycare, for a childcare center. And so another issue that was brought up during the commission meeting was a lack of a need for a childcare center as opposed to a family daycare, which wouldn't require this rezoning or use permit. So the advantages of a childcare center would be that it would allow for up to 28 children as opposed to 14, 28 but 26 depending on the size, the state's decision on the size, whether the size of our playground would allow for 28. And it would provide stricter regulations on teachers, classrooms, and programs. Some examples would be the teacher-to-student ratio, which was discussed, and things like separating children by age and separating children by classroom regarding age. And it would be large enough to allow for curriculums tailored by age. So, for all these reasons and more, generally, when run well, we consider them to be a more structured, developmentally enriching, and a high-quality care service that are better able to provide care that truly supports a child's physical, emotional, social, and cognitive development. And in addition to those reasons, a family daycare in California would not have to go through the same regulatory processes that assess the quality of the service provided and many other things. So for example, a family daycare would not have to provide parking on site simply because the state tries to make it as easy as possible for family daycares to operate. So housing values. So housing values was the main issue presented during the Planning Commission meeting. People were worried that it would decrease housing values having a daycare nearby. So there's no evidence of correlation between housing values and daycare. I think that would be very hard to find. And actually, it potentially could logically increase the value of nearby properties for dual income families with children who are in need of childcare. Families might find a neighborhood more attractive if there is quality, affordable childcare nearby. That was the main issue presented. So additional relevant neighborhood input is, additional relevant neighborhood input was parking concerns and the safety of children in the daycare. So there was a question about whether the parking provided would be adequate for the number of teachers. So like Mr. Crabtree mentioned, having 28 kids for one reason was to provide flexibility for us, depending on what the state decides, whether we meet certain licensing requirements. But for 26 kids between the ages of 2 and 6, 2 teachers, in addition to Mrs. Sue, who would serve as both a director and a teacher, would meet the state requirement for a center-based childcare. So 4 spaces would be, the 4 spaces provided would be more than adequate. The safety of the children, that issue was also brought up since the daycare is located near the Stevens Creek and Serena Way intersection. So the drop-off and pickup areas, both the front circular driveway and the back driveway, are fully on site. The property, there are fully on the property site and not in the street. And since children between these ages are required by law to be walked to and from the classroom, they would likely never be unaccompanied when walking to the classroom or be near the street. So the benefit to the community and the benefit, so this childcare center would provide the community an important benefit, especially to dual income or single parent families, either working or living in Santa Clara. So this was just a quick image brought up from the economic impact report commissioned by the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And so you can just see it's a heat map of the supply of childcare slots versus the estimated number of children who demand childcare. And you can see 95051, which is our zip code, has more demand than supply. So lastly, so Mrs. Sue has a wealth of experience both teaching in and directing family daycares and teaching in and directing childcare centers. So she has the education, experience, and background to run a successful childcare center, and she knows all the details around them. And after seeing the need for childcare in Santa Clara and with the initial support of the community and city, she has worked on this project for about 2.5 years and contributed over $50,000 to its process in order to open and run a childcare center conveniently located near her residence, and one which will provide a vital benefit to the Santa Clara community. So with that, we'd like to thank the council for hearing us today and respectfully request an approval of our request to rezone to general office and approval of the use permit for a playground, which would be necessary to open a small childcare center at 281 Serena Way. And the last slide is of an appendix.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a couple of council members that may have some questions for you.
Okay.
The first would be Councilmember Mahan.
I think you actually answered one of the questions in your presentation. My question was going to be, what age children will you have enrolled?
It would be 2 to 6, ages 2 to 6.
And what is the proportion of that 2 to 6?
So that isn't listed in here, and it's not something that we would have decided on potentially, but is the question because of the teacher to student ratio for the parking? So the reason we said 2 to 6 is because it gives us and the reason we wanted 28 kids is because it gives us the flexibility to decide how many students we would want per age group. So, so the teacher-student ratio for ages 5 through 10, like was said, is 14. For 3 through 4, it's 12 students to 1 teacher, and for 2 students, I believe it's a little bit less.
6 to 1.
Sorry,
27 months, it's 6 to 1.
Okay, yeah. So, sorry, is it all right if someone else answers this question?
Well, it has an impact on the parking question, which is the next question. So even if you needed 3 teachers or possibly 4 teachers, where do the teachers park?
The teachers would park in the back.
And then where do parents park?
Well, if the parents were parking, well, normally we probably wouldn't have the parents parking. They'd probably just be dropping off in the front.
A 2-year-old?
Well, we would.
They have to get out of their car.
Yeah, we would. Sorry. Do you want to? Is it all right if I have someone else answer this question?
Sure.
Okay, good evening, Councillor. Yeah, regarding the ratio, I think I want to say the 2 to 6 is a 1 to 12. One teacher
27
was,
months, I just looked up the regulations, is 6 to 1.
no, actually.
27 to 3 years.
Okay, can you go to like a licensed childcare regulations and the website? It's a 1 to 12. And
That's not what I'm seeing on the California State website, but regardless, where do the teachers park and then where do parents park?
okay, well, the parent car parking, we have the parking lot behind. So the one teacher.
I'm sorry, you have the parking lot
we
where?
have we have a full parking lot at the back, and we have a drop off at the front. So we're gonna have a teacher aide. So one of the teacher can come to the front and pick up the kids from drop off and pick up area.
How many cars can queue up in the circular drop off place?
Well, I think like a two cars at one time.
And what happens when you have 3 parents or 4 parents?
Well, within at the back, still have a car and you can drop off too.
Where do they drop off? I didn't see a drop off place in the back.
No, because the car was well, my architect said the car was a driver go through around, so the people still
Put up the
came
site
back.
plan again.
But I didn't see a place for a car to pull up and drop someone off in the back.
Well,
I understand the driveways are one in and one out, but that you have parking places in the back.
Well, this is what you see the door over there, the exit door. The parents can drop off the car there, and then also we have another teacher can go pick up the kids out of the backyard.
But there's no parking in the back for the parents if their teachers are there.
Well, there's a 4, and there was a 2 teacher.
Okay. You just said you needed more than 2 teachers if you're operating with 2 to 6 and you have 28 students. If it's 12 to 1.
Yeah, because we, well, it's 1 to 12, so the number may gonna dropping down. You can decrease to 24. Okay. There will be two teachers with, 1 aide, that will be 3 teachers and still have extra parking lot there. So then the 1 teacher aide still can go to back to pick up the kids. And also the parents will not come at the same time. And the ratio, the difference. So then whenever the parents come, the teacher, the ratio, I think at the child care center, we're gonna work on the regulation, what was, with the ratios. So a 26 is like a 26 just the estimate. When the child care license comes, they will measure in the place. They may gonna give it a decrease the number or whatever, but not increase the number for sure. Thank you.
Another clarification. The existing house would be completely demolished, is that correct?
My architect actually is not here, I'm not a professional. I think the drawing will tell you it's demolished or not. I think there will be, remodel or inside will totally, I think, demolished. But outside, I'm not sure because I'm not a professional. I don't want to mislead on you. Thank you.
I thought I read somewhere that the house would be demolished.
Yeah.
Well, from the drawing, you maybe can tell because I think the city planner, if they can help me to answer the question because I'm no professional. So I only know the numbers.
Well, your plan said, sorry, it was in your plans. The plan said that the house would be demolished. It has a demo plan and then a proposed new building. Those are your plans, correct?
Well, the plan says that's okay.
Okay.
I don't know. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. So is the green area on this drawing here at the it looks like at the rear of the lot, is that the outdoor play area that's been kind of a little bit at issue? The green, like if you look, is that, is it planned to be just an open area, or will there be play structure, or if I'm correct in assuming that be to the rear of the parking spaces?
Yeah.
Would be the play area?
Yeah, the green area is a playground, and we have a gate, and we'll get a divided parking lot and a playground. So there will be place.
So it'll be fenced?
Yes.
It'll be fenced with a gate?
Yeah, the state license will request for that.
Okay, so it was mentioned that you own the property adjacent, and it looks like there's some slight lot line adjustments. So you're not doing anything to the your current residence. That property is staying the same. So I, because I'm thinking about, because we went through this a lot with the Harold Avenue property, and even the one on Stevens Creek, where not everybody. It's not like a regular school where everybody, everybody's there at 8 a.m. and you've got the backup in front of every school in California with parents dropping off kids, so that there's scattered times depending on what people's work schedule. So it seems like, you're not, and with even with 24 or 28 kids, that, that's not that much of a volume. I mean, in some ways, I think having this would be better than having some of the other, we need to work with the car dealers, because we all get a lot of emails where people complain about people test driving all over and, delivering cars and, crazy hours of the night. And I mean, I've seen it. I live right by Prune Ridge, and people like drag race on Prune Ridge to see how fast the cars, you can see the dealer plates and all that. So in some ways that might be a little bit safer. But not that this is a condition, but are you planning to continue to live next door? Because I'm thinking about the parking. If that's your residence and you're living next door, then you wouldn't need to park there, and
I will park in the car.
okay. So that's what I was just wanted to verify, that that's what the playground is, and that it will be fenced and it'll be gated. And that you're not planning to do anything else to the property, that you maintain the other property as your residence, but certainly that's not an item of a condition of this project.
Yeah, definitely we will do.
That's all I
and
have for
thank you.
now.
I think my daughter was matching mother. If we're going to have a family daycare and doesn't have a requested parking lot, and all the 14 family parents will park in the car on the street, that will make a parking problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question on the outdoor space. What is the requirement? What's the square foot per child for outdoor space for your licensing? Is it 75?
Yeah, 75 square footage for each child. However, you can rotate it the time. You can come with 2 groups, so that would be 35 square footage for each child.
Oh, so
group
35?
So group A comes at 9 o'clock, and then group B comes at 10 o'clock. So now we're divided over 35 square footage for each child.
So that gives you about 1,000 square feet of
Right.
outdoor space is what you're looking at. So you probably then wouldn't be licensed for 28 at the same time?
License may come, imagine the size may give it 24 or 20, you never know. So that's,
Could it all be at the same time?
Well, yeah, if I think my architect did a calculation, it was 1,000 something. So I don't know if that's it was a double size or not, then 24 should be able to for 26 at this time.
So you're anticipating getting licensed for 26, but but I don't think you actually have the outdoor space to get that.
That's right. So license will come measuring the size. And
they'll measure, right.
Yeah, they measure size indoor and outdoors. Indoors 35 square foot for each child. Outdoor 70, and we divide into 2 groups with 35 square foot for each child. So then after the measuring size, they will decide what number of kids you get it.
Because I think that the 75 square foot per child is a requirement for your license up to so many numbers, which would be like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of outdoor space that you would need. So I would be interested to see how many you actually get licensed for.
Yes, they will going to, as I said, it's 35 square footage, 75 for each child. But however, you can divide it into 2 groups. Then we'll come down with 35 square footage for each child.
Okay, so you wouldn't be able to have them all there at the same time.
Yeah,
then.
maybe.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. I couldn't figure out the numbers when I was looking at that. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mahan, do you have further questions?
Yes, I did. One more. What are your hours of operation?
Well, right now we estimate.
No, what will be the hours of operation?
7:30 to 6, or maybe 8 to 6. So we will see that from that hours we will try to operation the childcare center.
Okay, and just to clarify, the outdoor space doesn't limit the number of children you have, because you can have groups of alternate groups outside at one time.
Right.
And still get 26 in the classrooms. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions from the council, so I have some members of the public that would like to speak, and we can call you up back after that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mukesh Vardan, please come forward. After that is Jai Du. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I live on Sarina Way, a couple of houses down this. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I've gone through play schools and after schools in recent. But that's 26 or 28. I don't think 6 parkings are adequate. when you're dropping a 2 or 3-year-old, parents will get down from the car, they will park the car, they will spend several minutes. It's really hard for a young child to go. And so there is going to be overflow of traffic, and I believe we will have double parking right on Serena Way, which will also be a problem for parents like us who are trying to drop their children at 8:30 in the morning for a school time. So it's going to be a lot of rush. So I believe parking is going to be a concern, and I've looked at several play schools and after schools, and it is a concern. Normally, most of them are in like a strip mall kind of thing, where you have like almost parking for each parent. And also, the way this permit is going to be work in future, you could have overlap of students. There could be children going out and new children coming in. So there will be an overlap where the volume of students could be higher, though they might not be in the classroom, but there will be parents picking up the children and parents dropping off. So you could potentially have more number of students at that overlap. It could be probably for only a few minutes, but we could potentially have more cars coming in. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai, please come forward, and then Joe Mastrioni after that. Welcome.
Yes, Mayor and dear council members, my name is Jay Du. I've been living on Serena Way for more than 18 years. I just want to voice my concern about this project. As you already mentioned, our street has a lot of parking problem, and people, the car dealership park, and there's a coffee shop near east of our street, and then their customer parking in front of our home, and there are people test drive their car. So I think near the commercial property really make us, our property value decrease, and also we have, it affect our lifestyle. And there's multiple times I have to call the police because these people, they block my driveway. They don't even park in the right place. And then, so I think, I probably won't be able to change those, but I just concern more commercial property will make things even worse. And last but not least, I think Santa Clara need more housing, so convert the residential to commercial. I don't think it's a right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joe, and then Jerry Brown after that. Welcome.
So I second the comments of the previous speaker. Traffic, parking is horrible. This is just going to be worse. I'm a longtime resident of Serena Way, about 40 years. I'm recommending denial of the project. It'll be detrimental to the residential nature. It's a small street. You add one busy commercial enterprise on the street, it's going to make a big difference in a small street. It's going to exacerbate the parking issues and traffic issues and create other safety issues. I'd like to point out a couple of issues. The applicant is relying on a survey that was performed in November of 2016. And I think you need to realize it has very limited value because it was circulated before any details were known. And if you look at it closely, there's only 5 signatures on the petition. And the traffic study, some of the assumptions and conclusions are questionable. I think it's unreasonable to assume all drivers are going to use a circular parking drop-off or go around the perimeter of the house. They will park on the street if they feel it's going to be easier to get in and out, exacerbating the parking issues. It also means there'll be pedestrian crossing on the street. It's unreasonable to assume there's only 5% of the traffic is going to go down Serena Way to Mauritia. There's no evidence of that. And also, the study estimates 123 trips will be generated. And the conclusion by the traffic consultants is the residents will not notice increase in traffic. That's not reasonable. 123 trips will be very noticeable to the surrounding residents. So I think the proposed project will negatively impact the neighborhood, and we're hoping that Planning Commission or the City Council will consider the the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jerry Brown and then Kate Salama. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. So I would like to respectfully request that the upholding of the original decision by the Planning Committee for several reasons. Number one, first and foremost, the property does not meet the minimum requirements for the zoning that's being requested. They are doing the shell game, if you will, to make the property kind of conform to it. Second, the assertion, staff's and the applicant's assertion that having another commercial property provides a buffer or transition, it's on the face of it totally ludicrous. It's another commercial property. It's encroachment into residence. And then finally, it's abundantly clear the applicant's neighbors don't want this project. We don't want additional commercial properties within our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, and then Bryce McQueen after that. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I've been associated with Serena Way for over 60 years. I grew up on the street and purchased a home there 20 years ago. Like me, many other homeowners have invested in remodels in addition to increase our residential property values. Rezoning to non-residential will devalue our residential properties, especially mine, because I live right across the street. I will become a residential island. I'll be surrounded on 3 sides by non-residential properties. There's no justification for granting the modifications to the zoning codes requested by this project. Modifications or variances impact the surrounding neighborhoods. We saw that when Office Depot went out and they gave them reduced parking requirements. The coffee shop people park on our street along with the car dealers. You've heard all about that. This project will change the dynamics of our neighborhood. It'll increase traffic and parking and devalue our residential properties. I respectfully urge the council to abide by the general plan and the zoning codes, preserve our neighborhood, protect the children. I hope you took the time to read the 3-page letter that I submitted and the petition showing that 65% of the residents on the streets are against this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Bryce McQueen and then you, Sue, after that. Welcome.
Good evening. I understand the need to have daycare, but I don't see the justification in trying to rezone this, especially trying to justify a less of a lot width than is required by the rezoning. The site is already too tight. I don't think it's safe to have kids having to cross a drive aisle to get into the play area. With the circular driveway and a 10-foot requirement for a sidewalk out front, you're basically, the whole front yard will be concrete, which is not compatible with a residential district. As a condition of approval, a 6-foot masonry wall is required. The site plan is showing that masonry wall going all the way to the curb. That's another safety issue where you won't have the vision triangle going into the driveway. The city recently changed the general plan to from commercial to residential in order to preserve the residential character of the neighborhood. This would be now going the opposite direction. And daycare can be allowed. We don't need a rezoning. And additionally, with the increase, street maintenance is already an issue on this street, and adding more traffic is just going to make it even worse. Thanks.
Thank you. You, Sue, and then Christina Dwan after that. Good evening.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council. My name is Yuzu, and I'm resident and owner of the Serena Way. I support this project because the childcare is underserved in this area in Santa Clara. A family daycare cannot afford a high quality, affordable, and regulated and the childcare service to the local community. This project, if you see the doing, is adding very little footprint to the existing commercial property right now. It just add a little bit. I don't believe it reduce the property value. Instead, I think it it will attract the young people, for example, and working in the Apple, and both working need a childcare service. They would like to build a house in here because there's a local community service. That's my opinion. And I remember 1912, and then cross street there's a Walmart neighborhood store move in, and our neighborhood rally the same protest, and it will bring traffic, it will bring criminal, and it will reduce our property value. Since Walmart moving, our value is look everybody how much their house increased, at least $1 million. It's not because that story. It's a local community. Anything benefits the local community should be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christina Duan, please come forward. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, mayors and city councilors. So I'm here to just to present my opinion to support this project, and you know, to have the city to support this project and grant this rezoning to a daycare center. So as a mom with 2 children, I've been through the difficulties, you know, to look for daycare centers, affordable, family-friendly, and, you know, convenient. And so in this neighborhood, the demand is there. So we are looking for daycares to take care of kids, to take care of our children, you know, which is trustful and which is, you know, family-friendly. And to being able to have a daycare center across the street, and I can welcome my kids to that daycare center, which is a very good benefit, and it's a great release to mom, you know, to have the kids sent to that center and to take care of their kids. And also, you know, as to the other neighbors who has concerns about the traffic, I don't think that's an issue, because, you know, this project had went through the traffic study, and the traffic study had already approved, and also has the evidence support, and which shows that it wouldn't impact the traffic. And also, it is then in a matter of how to manage the traffic, right? And if this project and if this daycare center will cooperate with the city to always, you know, to improve the management and to have like I just overheard Ms. Su said she can have like a teacher's aide to come to the road and pick up the kids when the parents drop off their kids. So then that's a great way to cooperate and to, you know, to manage the traffic. And also, like if this daycare center is not a commercial daycare center, if it's a it's a family daycare center, and then there is no like
Thank
a
you.
parking
If you could just
required.
finish your thought. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other speakers? I don't have any other names. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Excuse me, Mayor, we need the
Yes.
rebuttal of the applicant first.
Say that one more time.
We need to give the applicant the opportunity, the appellant, the opportunity
Oh,
to
I was going to
rebut
do that after I do that before.
before
Okay.
you close public hearing.
Thank you. So if the applicant would like to come forward and discuss any issues that were brought up in the public hearing, if you'd like to either, please come forward. If you'd like to make any comments on the testimony that was given at the public hearing, now's your time to do that.
Okay, I don't have anything very specific to bring up regarding what was said. Just that, in general, these traffic problems and these parking problems, they would be exacerbated if we had 2 family daycares serving 28 children as opposed to 1 childcare center serving 28 children, as well as having 2 family daycares located more in a residential area versus right on the edge of one. And yeah, I guess I don't really have anything else very specific to add to that. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Mahan, do you have questions of the applicant?
No, I was
okay. Thank you. Yes, please come forward.
Yes, I just want to state that if you don't, if we're gonna operate a family daycare, and we have a 14 parents allowed to have a family daycare, we don't have to go to rezoning. So 14 parents must parking on the street. And for the safety reason, so the kids will walk from the street to the school, to the home. It's not safe for the kids. And also, we're going to make the traffic more busy. And then the truck is approved. We have a parking lot behind. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, now, is there a motion to close the public hearing? We had one on the floor, a motion and a second. We can vote on that. We have a new voting system. We're still working on it, so just to let you all know that. There we go. If you could register your vote, please. Thank you. So that motion passes to close the public hearing. So I had a question of staff, if you wouldn't mind, Community Development Director. Could you talk about if this project were, or this application were not approved this evening, what would the applicant be allowed to do on the property in terms of a family daycare versus the other daycare?
So as you heard, it's correct that if the zoning change is not approved, it remains residential property. The zoning code allows family home daycare, which has a cap of 12 children in service, and it assumes that someone's living in the house is providing the daycare. So I don't know to the specifics, but if someone were to reside in the house and they as mentioned, the applicant owns the adjacent property, and just you heard the last comment that they have two houses, so presumably both could be used as a home daycare with 12 children each.
So there would be no approvals necessary for the home daycare?
Not through the city.
Not through the city.
Right.
What, is there any requirements for home daycare?
Lots.
Not really. I mean, the house needs to abide by the single-family residential standards. But if they're not doing any proposed changes or anything like that, then we don't.
No parking requirements, no anything?
No.
And that, what about the ages? No? Doesn't matter?
It does not matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions.
Actually, can I follow up on that question? Because, okay, Mr. Crabtree, the California state licensing standards has a great many requirements, even for family daycare. So there's no guarantee that her house could support 12 in her house the way it is. Is that correct?
And I don't know what, we don't apply those standards. We just look, I was just speaking to what the city's requirements are. I could not answer that question as to what the state would allow or not allow.
Well, you have to live in the house to begin with, so she couldn't have it in the next door house where she doesn't live. The maximum is 12, and you have to have qualifications even for yourself to have those children in your house. You have outdoor requirements, you have safety requirements, you have all kinds of requirements even to approve a family daycare through the state. So there's no guarantee that she could have 12 in each house by any means. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it would not be under our regulation. It would be through the state, and I don't know the conditions and what the requirements are.
Right, so you can't say that she'd have 12 in each house.
I'm just saying under our code, under the city's codes, they couldn't potentially, if they met the state requirements, have up to 12.
All right, thank you. So I do have some comments and a motion when the mayor sees fit.
Why don't you go ahead, since
all right, thank
nobody's jumping in here.
And I do want to say, I do appreciate the need for daycare throughout our county. And I also want to say that I worked in early childhood education. It was my second career. I worked in early childhood education probably for more than 10 years. And I have a client, who's my cousin, who owns one of the largest daycare centers in Santa Clara County. It's in Sunnyvale. So I'm kind of familiar with this industry, and there are a lot of state requirements because you're dealing with the most vulnerable of our population. You're dealing with children, and in some cases, very, very young children, even infants. So with my familiarity, I can state with some certainty that the parent of a 27-month-old child or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old child isn't going to drive up to a circular driveway, stay in their car, and let somebody come out and take their child. Number one, it takes a long time for a child to adjust to daycare, leaving the parent at that age. Parent's going to come in. They're going to spend some time. They're going to make that adjustment, that transition with their child. Pickup is the same. And I agree that drop-offs may be staggered throughout the morning, but pickups, I can assure you, happen right after work between 5 and 6, or 6:05 or 6:10. You have 27 parents and 27 cars picking up 26 children in the space of maybe an hour. 2.5 minutes each, on average, is not what a parent spends picking up their child, especially a 2 or a 3 or a 4-year-old. When they want to show you things, they have art projects to pick up, you've got to find their sweater, you've got to talk to the teacher, you know, there's just a whole host of things that go on during pickup times. So there is going to be a traffic impact, especially if those 4 parking spaces are taken up by teachers. The owner may not have to take up a parking space, she lives next door, but this use permit runs with the land. So any operator can run this daycare should this operator sell it or move from this house. So you may need 1 space for the owner. You may need 3 spaces for the teachers. And then you mentioned an aide. Well, an aide can come out and pick up the children. Well, certainly that's another person. It wouldn't be the teacher because you can't leave a classroom unsupervised. So there's 4 or 5 people. So there is inadequate parking, and we have to be cognizant of that. There is going to be an impact with people driving up Serena Way and probably queuing up down the block to get into the daycare, especially during pickup time. You could have 2 groups outside in that less than 1,000 square foot area of outdoor activity area. So that means in the morning, you're going to have 2 or 3 hours where the children are going to be outside playing, only 14, but then you're going to have 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon when the children are outdoor playing. And children are lovely, I love them, and I love the noise that children make, but they do make noise. And that's going to impact the surrounding neighborhood. I can hear St. Clair's preschool from my house, and it's a couple blocks away. And when the kids are outside, I can hear them. It's dull, but so the noise does carry. This is probably not the best location. It's not near workplaces, which is where parents really like their daycares to be. It's not in a commercial area. This is not a zoning by right. It requires a demolition of the house, which would have to go to at least architectural review for approval for the demolition. This permit does run with the land, so any operator could come in and operate it, could extend the hours, could do a lot of other things. Now, the other thing is this is not a small business operation. The average cost of daycare, especially for full-time, and you're talking 2 to 5, you're talking full-time, these kids aren't in school, it's over $1,000 a month. So with 26 or 28 kids, that's $26,000 to $28,000 a month income. That's an over $300,000 a year business. That's not a small business that's a home-based kind of business that we're talking about. It's a business that belongs in a commercial area. This is not a commercial area, albeit it abuts the auto dealerships, but I'm not going to compound the problem that exists, that's kind of a bad problem to begin with, by making it worse. So my motion is to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the rezoning and uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the use permit.
Second.
No, there's not at this point. No. No, that's okay. We can't. Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. I understand that people are worried about traffic and all that, but I think about the history of several other daycares in that area, and there was reference made to one on Stevens Creek down further, closer to Lawrence Expressway, and actually, I think the egress in this one is superior with having the the kind of semicircular access in the front and the driveway that would circle the site. The project that we approved just a year or two ago, which I think is now open on Stevens Creek, we actually let that's a lot larger facility. We allowed them to have even less spaces than their number of employees, because part of the presumption that we all agreed to and that they said they would encourage was that because it was close to or near on the Stevens Creek corridor, that their employees would be instructed to take the bus, and we allowed that. I think that we have a separate issue about the car dealerships, and I think we do, as a council in the city, we need to be looking into that, because as I said, I live kind of close to that area also, and I see, see that, and I have neighbors and different friends and things that register their complaints. So I think that's a separate issue than this issue. I think that, as was pointed out, this homeowner could run to family centers. And having spent many years, and I respect the time that Councilmember Mahan spent in the daycare area or preschool, early childhood education, but from my experience being on the school board for 8 years and having worked or having been a volunteer at United Way in evaluating grant proposals, and a lot of what we were trying to do was to upgrade the level of early childhood education that was being delivered, and to help people, not just have kids parked with people, not that there's anything wrong with having a grandma or an auntie or whatever take care of a child, but in terms of the actual early childhood development, there was a huge effort in this county to put millions of dollars into upgrading the kind of early childhood education that's available. So I think this is a needed service. I think that this is even if they're only, based on, Mayor Gilmore was addressing the limitations on the spacing. I mean, I think it's very probable that they maybe will be licensed to only have, say, 20 children. There's a possibility that there could be carpooling or from the neighborhood people walking. So I really don't think that that's, particularly with the layout that they have, that's a major issue. And in light of the larger need for quality child care, I mean, in this community, and the level of state licensing requirements that they will be subject to, I cannot support that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
From all the testimony that I heard from the neighbors, I live over on Mauricia Avenue, and I do have a child daycare house next to me. And the drop-off and pick-off is, because it's 12 students, it's not a lot. So I'm not really impacted by all that. But the thing, when I was reading all the reports, that your problem is definitely in the car dealerships. There's no doubt in my mind that you are totally impacted in that neighborhood by what's going on. So I think I agree with Councilmember O'Neill that we have to really look at that and address some of that. We have a lot of that happening in our city. I just recently bought a car, and I watched all the employees park in your neighborhood and walk across the street. So they really do impact you, and I know there's no place to park, but it is a public street. Everybody can park where they want, but there are remedies that we have as council. We can kind of work that out. In regards to this, I'm kind of concerned about the rezoning and turning it into something, because if the business is sold, then it's already there, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm going to support the motion and uphold the Planning Commission's decision, because I think they did their due diligence on this, and they looked at it from every way and angle that they could. I understand that there were concerns about your property values. Not so sure about how that fits in there, because I know that even though I have something next to me, it doesn't really impact me at all. So I don't know about that too much, but I think for your peace of mind that we need to uphold the Planning Commission's decision. That's their job, and I think that we're going to do that. I hope that's going to be supported by the rest of the council, and we can move on, but let's address your issues with the other situation and go forward on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've heard some of the concerns expressed by some of the other members of the council, and I agree with a lot of them. As a parent, I looking at this piece of property and knowing how much kids like to play and the amount of children that are being proposed utilizing this facility, I'm concerned about the size. And frankly, kids just like to spread out, and I just don't see enough space there for kids to spread out. I am also concerned about the proximity of the location to traffic, Stevens Creek Boulevard. I know we did approve, I was thinking about the other facility that we approved down closer to Lawrence, and it's a much bigger facility, and it just to me, it had a much better setup. I really have a lot of concerns about the location, the size, and and understanding, hearing the concerns of the neighbors. I mean, when you have 65% of your neighbors opposing a project, I think you have to listen to the community. So I will agree to uphold the planning decision. Thank you.
Any other member of the council? All right. I just wanted to make a few comments. I can see that the Planning Commission, I'm sure by the vote, is going to be upheld. So the daycare probably will not be approved. Just a couple of things. I actually grew up in this street, at the other end of the street. I haven't lived there since 1980. But it's really a special street. And I also lived on Harold Avenue for 20 years. So when Councilmember O'Neill is talking about that, I lived on 2 streets that had Stevens Creek on the end with businesses and car dealerships driving up and down the streets and back and forth. So I'm aware of what's happened, and it's just gotten worse in terms of that. And I think what's happened with this particular project is the car dealerships and the impact of the commercial businesses on Stevens Creek have impacted Serena Way, which in turn has impacted this particular proposed project. And I think that where this house is located is right on the edge. In fact, I think it used to be owned by Bob Shiro and the Corvette dealership on the end. I know that it was the next one over that was owned by the Porsche dealership. But you know, I think daycare would be a good use for the property, but I do not see 28 children being licensed in that facility. I don't even think you're going to get the license. So I think that the applicants really need to look at if they want to continue on either with a family daycare, which they don't need approvals from the city, or if you want to come back for approvals with the city, bring a more realistic plan of the number of students. I have 3 children that I took to daycare in houses in residential neighborhoods throughout the years, and everybody doesn't come at once and everybody doesn't leave at once. It's staggered throughout the day. So we do need daycare in the city. We do need it in the community. Unfortunately, all parents have to work now. It's not even a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. And if you can bring your children, I picked mine up, and there was no parking where I took my children, and was in and out as quickly as possible. You're not dropping them off. You're getting out of the car. You're in and out. But not everybody comes at once. That's a false statement. So I do think that there could be potential, and the applicant can do their own daycare without the city approval. But if you do want a city approval, I recommend that you get the actual information from licensing to see how many you can actually license in that facility, and come back with a more realistic picture or not. I mean, that's up to you, but it's a shame because we do need daycare in the community. I mean, it's just a necessity now. So I guess we will now vote on the motion, and the motion is to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the project. Please register your vote. And that passes 6-1. So the Planning Commission's denial is upheld. All right. Next item we have on the agenda is the reports of members and special committees.
Mayor, can I just?
Yes, Councilmember Davis?
I just want to let everybody know from the Triton Museum, oh my gosh, what did I just do to my whole thing here? They are doing, the Triton Museum is having their annual gala, Cinco de Mayo, actually. It's on Saturday, May 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. And this is where they do their silent auction, they serve food, and they have a preview of their artwork that they're selling on May 3rd and 4th. Is cocktail attire, and I think it is $160 a ticket, but this is a good time, so I wanted to give them a shout out, because if you love an art, like Teresa O'Neill down here, my art lover, this is a really nice event. So I would hope that people would come out and support them. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Mahan?
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to announce that the American Cancer Society is having its Relay for Life in Santa Clara on April 28th through the 29th at Townsend Field at Booksor Middle School. This is a 24-hour walk on the track. You can walk individually, you can walk in teams, you can walk for 1 hour, you can walk for 24 hours, you can camp out on the field if you want to attend for the whole 24-hour event. If you want to walk in the evening, it's especially moving because the track is lit with luminaires that honor the loved ones who have been lost to this disease. A few years ago, Councilmember Davis chaired this event, and I think she raised the most money ever, if memory served. It was something over like $100,000.
$140,000.
$140,000, thank you. And this money is so
Hey, I remember.
important because it all goes to the American Cancer Society, and they do more for research for the cure, the quest for the cure, because there is no cure at this time. But they have done so much in research. The landscape for cancer treatment changes not just yearly anymore, not even by decade, it changes by month. I'm going to have I'm in the middle of a treatment for a small tumor on my liver. It's a treatment that wasn't available 2 decades ago. It wasn't perfected for this kind of a area not even 10 years ago. And after this, I'll be on a medication that was only approved for my type of breast cancer, which is BRCA2 mutation, only in January of this year. So that's how important the money is for research. That's how important the research is. We are closer to a cure every week. So if you can do anything to support this wonderful event, the Relay for Life, you just need to go to relayforlife.org/Santa Clara, and you can register yourself, your friends, your team, and like I say, every cent raised goes to a very worthy cause.
Thank you for that. And we did have a presentation on that from the organizers a couple weeks ago, so we have to just keep reminding everyone and bring it up because it's such a wonderful event. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. The city of Santa Clara was a proud host for the Japanese delegation that was just here for their annual visit from Izumo, Japan. There were 12 students and 3 chaperones, and they had a wonderful time visiting here, City Hall. They had their Santa Clara Day. They went to Great America. They went to Stanford. They had a wonderful, wonderful time. And so it's always great to meet all the new kids and speak Japanese, and also to see Mr. Kuwabara and Yamamoto-san. And it was a successful trip. Kudos to Santa Clara Sister Cities for pulling off another great visit. And the other thing I just wanted to share was I attended out at Moffett Field last Wednesday with Congressman Ro Khanna. He hosted, along with the 129th Airborne, honoring the veterans, the Vietnam veterans, who were not properly honored when they returned from their duties overseas. And so there were 81 veterans in attendance. The congressman presented each one with a proclamation along with a pin, thanking them for their service, and gave one to each one. And then there were 6 of us there representing various cities, including Sunnyvale, Fremont, Newark, and San Jose. And we also got to meet each of the veterans, which was really wonderful. And I met a veteran from the Battle of Normandy. He was 96 years old, and he had a Purple Heart and another medal of significance, but it was a wonderful opportunity. There were veterans there crying because they had never, ever been properly recognized, so it meant the world to them. And then I was also very happy to meet 6 of our own Santa Clarans that were also in attendance from 2 posts here in Santa Clara, and so it was really wonderful. It's the first time that anything like that has been done by a congressional member, and so it was well done, and hopefully others will take it upon themselves to do the same thing and honor these important people that have fought and in many cases died for their country. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for representing the city at that event. Okay, and I know it was on the consent calendar. We were accepting a donation from the Kiwanis Club. I just want to thank the Kiwanis Club for donating for the Easter egg hunt at Central Park in Santa Clara last Saturday. There was thousands of children, thousands, more than I've ever seen before, and families. It was unbelievably packed, and people were very excited. I want to thank our Parks Director, Jim Teixeira, and his staff for putting this on as well. It was a very successful event, extra successful in Santa Clara. I think next year we need more eggs, more candy. There was so many children, but I want to thank the Kiwanis Club for donating for that as well. So City Manager, Director reports. Okay, thank you. And we have our tentative meeting schedule calendar there. So we have 2 adjournments this evening. The first is we're asked to adjourn in the memory of Nancy Elizabeth McFadden, the Chief of Staff in the Office of Governor Edmund G. Brown. Nancy McFadden was born in Wilmington, Delaware, the eldest child of William McFadden and Mary Adams. Ms. McFadden attended San Jose State University, where she was student body president. After she graduated from the University of Virginia School of Law, she went on to become a junior associate at the O'Melveny and Myers law firm before her extensive career in politics. Ms. McFadden was named Deputy Political Director for the Bill Clinton presidential campaign. After the 1992 election, Ms. McFadden was appointed as a Deputy Associate Attorney General, acting as a liaison between the Justice Department and the White House. She moved on to become General Counsel for the Transportation Department and later continued to serve in the Clinton administration as a Deputy Chief of Staff of Vice President Al Gore. Ms. McFadden returned to California, where she had spent much of her childhood to advise Governor Davis during the state's energy crisis. She later worked at Pacific Gas and Electric Corporation as Senior Vice President for Public Affairs before she joined the Brown administration. She served as Governor Brown's Chief of Staff for the past 8 years, where she was the driving force behind his agenda and worked on the extension of the state's cap-and-trade law, the rainy day fund, the state water bonds, the push to control public employee pensions, the taxes for schools and transportation, and the ballot measures to reform criminal justice. After a long battle with ovarian cancer, Ms. McFadden passed away on March 22nd, 2018. The second is we're asked to adjourn in honor of Mary Constance Pasquale, Santa Clara resident. Mary Constance Pasquale was born on September 12, 1921. Mary was first born in Fayal Azores and immigrated to the U.S. with her parents when she was a child. She met and married Edward Norman Pasquale, and soon they settled in Santa Clara. Mary and Edward had 2 children, Dr. Norman Pasquale and Diane Remick, and Mary was the loving grandmother of 5 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. She was preceded in death by her husband, Edward, her parents, her brother, and her 2 sisters. Mary was an active member of the St. Clair Parish, and she served on several organizations in the community, including the Santa Clara Sister Cities Association and the Portuguese Historical Museum. Mary passed away peacefully at home on March 27, 2018. So if I could please have a motion in both their memories.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second. Please register your vote. And that passes 7-0. Meeting's adjourned.